Hello. Oh, okay. Why is the music so loud on my end right now? Hello? Hi. Welcome on in. I think the music is still a bit loud. There you go. My God. Is this my first stream ever? Did I never look at audio levels in my life before? What is happening? Hi y'all. Welcome on in. Y'all, I made cool. I learned how to make a frappuccino at home. Turns out it's a lot easier than I thought. I don't know. I for some godforsaken. Hello? Okay, you can hear me now. You can't hear the music though, which I don't understand why. Let me try this. Okay, that's not working for the music for some reason. Okay, but you can hear me at least now. Okay, I love immediately starting off the stream with technical difficulties. Okay, I actually don't understand what is happening. So let me try something. Is that working? No, you can't hear the music at all. Hold on. Let me try to restart that audio source. See if that will help in any way, shape, or form. Okay, that is working. We have music now. There's also an alert that y'all can't hear, but I can. So that's cool. Hi, Andara. Thank you so much for the 22 months. Highly appreciate it. Yeah, I have no idea what's up with like the subs and how they kind of count. But thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know what it is. Like I remember this happened to me with Passion's stream as well. Like I got given a couple months of like sub gifts for her channel, and then I got the notification like to basically announce it in the chat, and then like a week later it told me like another thing, and I was like, wait, but I just did this like literally last week. So I don't know. I think it must be like some of those months where it's like you subscribe like at the very beginning of the month or like at the end of a month, and then like when there's a change in the month it like prompts you to do it again. I have no idea, but thank you so much. I appreciate the continued support. I really do. Hello. So I made a frappuccino that I'm almost done drinking. Turns out it's like the easiest thing to do. Like I basically already did it, but without blending it. So basically what I would do is like I would fill up this glass with ice. I would pour like maybe half of it with milk and then the rest with like coffee or decaf. Today is coffee because I ran out of decaf. So if, you know, if there's any problems, then you'll know. So far, so good though. And that would typically be it. Sometimes I would mix a little bit of like chocolate powder. So I would make basically like milk chocolate and put in like coffee or decaf to it. And would call that a mocha or whatever. But then I looked up how to do a frappuccino, and it's basically the same thing, but you blend the ice and you blend everything into it. So I was like, oh, work, I can do that. So I did. So basically I did. I put in milk, I put in a ton of ice, I put in the coffee, the powdered chocolate, and it's delicious. It's lovely. So I'm obsessed. It's my current obsession. I know you can also make a lot of stuff. You can like also get like caramel, like syrup or anything like that. So you can make like different variations and stuff. I want to look up how to do a vanilla one. I'm pretty sure you use vanilla ice cream for that. I'm not sure, but I'm interested in looking it up. No, that's fair. We used I don't know what you would call it, but we would call it like a kitchen robot type of thing. So no, it's probably not a. Yeah, I don't know what you would call it, but it's basically a thing that you can make a lot of different things in. Like you can make ice cream, you can do like it's one of those where you put in like a timer, you do all that stuff, but then it can like make meals, it can make like ice cream. It's not really I don't know if it would be a food processor. It's hard to describe. Yeah, it's apparently just called like a kitchen robot. I don't know if you're familiar with Thermomix, but it's the closest thing that I can find to what it is. It's basically like a thing where you can like cook meals, you can blend things in it, you can make ice cream, you can make dough, you can make a lot of different things in it. I don't know if you would call it a processor, but I also don't know what you would call it. Apparently what I'm seeing is like kitchen robot. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what it would be. Yeah, I don't know. So basically we have one of those, but we never use it for anything. So I was like, oh, we could just use it for. Actually, my mom suggested we could just use it for that, like as a blender type of moment. So that's what I did. I've been slurping on this the entire time. So it was filled basically to the brim. So I've been drinking all of that while I was overthinking what to title this stream and all of that stuff, and all of that stuff. I have too many gizmos. I would love to have a multitask one. We have a slow cooker, air fryer, rice cooker, blender, food processor. They take up so much room. Yeah, but it's probably better to have things that are great at very specific things rather than having a thing that's supposed to be good at like everything, but it's not. Maybe it won't be great at any. I don't know, like you know. But yeah. Either way, an air fryer sounds lovely though, and a rice cooker actually, like all of the above. Hi Sin, good to see you. I like having specific things for stuff. I get that. I honestly, I think this was one of the things that I gifted Mama Ruby because I think in my head, I thought I was gifting like a food processor, but then like it was really just a multitask type of like thing. So I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was excited. I had my first kind of like real job, or it was like the first job that like I worked through Christmas season. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna spend money. Like I want to gift great things. But then it's like Mama Ruby likes to just make things the regular way, like normally. So like she's not really the type to just throw a bunch of shit in like a thing and like let it cook for her. Like she's the type to like, you know, use the stove and all that stuff. So anyway, so yeah. I'm using it for drinks. So cheers to that. Homemade Starbucks. We need like whipped cream. I love that little detail on top. Anyway, that's not what I'm here for today. What I'm here for today is actually a thing that I wanted to talk about basically this whole week, but it's been so warm that I haven't had the energy to stream. And today was actually a stretch. Today I actually was like, girl, you have to stream. Like no more, like we can't just let the heat defeat us. We can't just like whatever, you know? So I was like, I'm forcing myself to stream because I really want to talk about this. And you can probably guess from the title of the stream what the topic is about. But I'm going to give y'all a little bit of context and everything. So Sin says, I like having specific things for stuff and got into having a little home for each of the things so they aren't on the counter. I love that because seeing a lot of things out is stress. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that was, I like the way that you described that as like everything having a little home to it, because that's exactly what it is. Like, I forget if it was like Marie Kondo or if it was like a different show or a thing that I read or a thing on YouTube. I have no idea, but it was basically that idea that like in order for you to be organized and in order for things to be smoother in your life, you have to think of things as like everything needs to have a home to it. Like there needs to be a dedicated space for everything in your life. Or it should, there not maybe not that it needs to, but it should, because it makes it so that you will just you'll naturally have a place to put those things, if that makes sense. So let's say, for example, you're a gamer and you don't have a particular place dedicated to your controllers, right? So your controllers, after you're done using them, they're just going to be laying around wherever because there's not really a dedicated place where you store them or anything like that. You know what I mean? So that's definitely like a big thing, like finding a little home for like, you know, your electronics or for your chargers or for this and that, because it will make it so that you won't just default to leaving them out or leaving them in random places or whatever, because you'll always know where they are. And so, yeah, a little home, a little purpose. Yes, that's a really neat way of like describing that, because it's true. And it also, you know, it also reframes the way you think about it, right? Like you think about like, oh, let me put this friend in their home, right? Like instead of thinking about like, oh, where am I going to put this, or I'm just going to leave it out here or whatever, you know? So yeah, so about today's topic, some of you may be familiar with what's happening, some of you may not, so I'm going to give you a little context to why my title is what it is, and we can have a little discussion about it if that's cool with y'all. Marie Kondo reading was a thing here. What do you mean? Marie Kondo reading? Does she have books out? Have I been missing out on Marie Kondo books my whole life? Well, I guess that's how she got the show. That must have been how she even got the show. Anyway, so my title today is, Are Reaction Streamers Stealing from Creators? First of all, this is kind of a return to like, I used to do this all the time. I don't know if a lot of people are familiar, but you know, I had like a couple podcast eras in my life, but I've also used to do streams like this where I would kind of get into what's happening in the world or around social media, or like a particular topic that I felt like getting into. So today I really wanted to talk about reaction streamers and the concept that's being kind of thrown around of like, are reaction streamers stealing from creators? And this is more Breakfast at Ruby's was an era. I kind of miss it, to be honest with you. It's funny because sometimes a couple things pop up and I have like my friend Passion, for example, she used to be kind of a staple in that show, and it's funny because a couple times we would have like, we would just be like on a call with each other, and sometimes she would bring up like, oh, we would totally talk about this thing on like Breakfast at Ruby's. And sometimes we talk about how we changed so much since then, because I feel like it honestly hold a place in my heart always. Aww, I came out with the whole pronoun update during an episode. Oh, Sin, I love that. I do remember that. I vaguely remember the conversation we had around like identity and all that stuff. We honestly, that show, there were so many amazing conversations that took place for that show. And honestly, I think it was a little ahead of its time, because now there's like 50,000 podcasts with like video to it and all this shit. And I feel like, honestly, I feel like Breakfast at Ruby's was kind of in like not a wrong era, but like if had it come out during like okay, so there was a little bit of Breakfast at Ruby's while TikTok popped up, and I did upload a couple clips. I remember one of them, it might have been the first one that I uploaded, was I had an episode with Small Z, and I remember I think one of my first clips that I uploaded was like me just casually mentioning how I hated Avatar: The Last Airbender or something like that, and then just the faces. I forget who else was on the podcast, and I apologize. It might have been Petey, because I think it was like an Aussie episode, if I'm not mistaken. But I just remember the two guests that I had just looked at me like, what? And that was like one of my first clips that I uploaded at the time on TikTok. But yeah, even now it would have still been ahead of its time in just how you handled it. Oh, I appreciate that. But yeah, I remember every once in a while, me and Passion do have these conversations of like, oh my God, we would totally have talked about this on Breakfast at Ruby's. And we feel like we would have had so many, like, not that some of the episodes we would have different perspectives on things, but I think because the last few years have been so traumatic in different ways because of things happening in the world and stuff like that, I feel like we wouldn't have the same amount of energy to dedicate to some of the things that we would talk about, because we were very like, oh, this is problematic, this is why this is problematic, and we would kind of have these like very wholehearted conversations about these things, and we would have like a lot of energy dedicated to each topic, and we would be like, I think at times we would also be kind of like a little black and white on certain things. We would look at certain things and be like, this is bad, therefore that person, like, we wouldn't say that the person is bad, but we would almost like boycott entirely. And I feel like now we kind of see it. I mean, speaking at least for myself, I feel like I have less energy to dedicate to a lot of topics, because it's like one part is like picking and choosing battles, honestly, and it's like, is it worth potential harassment that I'm going to face online if I post this? Or some of it is also like a lot of misinformation, and some of it is also like, I don't know, maybe not necessarily, it's not that I don't care, but I just don't have the same amount of energy to be like outraged about things, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? because there's just so much going on that it's almost like, girl, I don't know. You know what I mean? But yeah, anyway. So about reaction streamers and all this stuff. This topic has mainly become a hot issue, a hot topic, because recently there was a creator of the name XQC. You may have heard of him. And he was kind of like called out on social media from I guess how hi Lotus. I literally, as I went live, I saw that you tweeted that you're sick, so I hope you feel better soon, friend. Lotus is wonderful. Sin is also wonderful. Two wonderful streamers y'all need to be following. I don't know if it's the caffeine, because I don't feel it necessarily like in my heart, but I feel like maybe my brain is a little more scattered because of it. So forgive me if I keep jumping around different topics. You haven't been sick in so long, so you're like, I know. I hate that for you. I hope you feel better soon. I haven't been sick in very long either, so I don't want to jinx myself, but you know what it is? I think turns out masks work. Turns out, like, whenever you go out in public and you wear a mask and you're a little like, and you maybe you don't touch your face and your eyes and your mouth and anything like that, you know, while you're out and about, turns out that works, you know? There are literally times where in the year of 2023, you know, I feel like I don't want to say peer pressure, but sometimes when you're the only person in a packed bus wearing a mask, sometimes you think like, am I being like, I never think like, am I being silly? But sometimes I'm like, you know, maybe like that, like a slight thought of like, maybe I'm doing too much by wearing this. And then it's like the exact moment I think something like that, like someone like in front of me or on the side or whatever is like fully like coughing their lungs out with like not even doing this, nothing, just fully coughing into the air, coughing like at me or coughing in my direction, like something wild like that. And I'm like, okay. This is why I'm not unmasking anytime soon, girls. So, yeah. I keep telling this story. One time I worked, basically every job that I've had was at a mall. But I think it was my, no. I think it was my very first job. I was that person at a mall wearing a t-shirt for a particular brand, standing next to the product, and if you approached me, and you had questions, I would try to sell you that product, basically. So I worked Christmas season. I was selling, I don't know if maybe that's a thing in other places. I never know, so whatever. I sold those packages where it's like you pay like $20 and it's like a dinner for two, and there's like it's almost like I don't want to say a Groupon, but it's that kind of thing where it's like so you basically like you pay $20, it's like a dinner for two, or like a 2-night stay in like a 3-star hotel, and you buy that thing, and then there's basically a booklet of like the places where you can go to with that product. So it was one of those, like I sold experiences, okay? And I worked holiday season. I worked I think I don't know if my last day was Christmas Day or something like that, or Christmas Eve. It was something like that. And I remember vividly, someone coughed, like we were crossing paths like this, right? Someone coughed as they were coming in my direction, they were coming towards me, and I got a whiff of like, it was like, I felt like a cloud of their cough. It could have been their breath, whatever. When I tell you, I got sick hours later. It was one of those things where like that person coughed in my direction. I felt the cloud entering my body, and I immediately told myself, I'm going to get sick. Like I knew that exact moment when I felt the cloud, I was like, oh, I'm going to get sick. And if I do get sick, this particular dude is the reason. And literally Christmas Eve, I think that must have been my last day at work for that, like, because it was like a couple of weeks kind of gig. It was Christmas Eve. I went to family, it was like a family thing. And I remember vividly, later that day, I was like coughing and sneezing, and I was like, oh shit, that I did get fucking sick. And I was sick for like, I don't know, probably less than a week. Imagine being sick around Christmas time. It's the worst. I hated it. I was like, what do you mean? But yeah, it was like annoying too. It was like an annoying cough. I always tell this story, so my drink is done. I've always had a super strong immune system, so I've had like one cold. Could have been COVID, I suppose, but I tested negative like a year ago. Other than that, I haven't been sick in like 10 years. I got sick in like 2021. It was like literally my first time going out of my house in like since COVID started. And I literally got sick, but I don't think it was COVID, because it was like, it wasn't really any of the symptoms, but it could have been. And I masked and everything, so you know. Needless to say, this was like November, and I stayed home basically for like 6 months after that. So like nobody else would have gotten. If it was COVID, nobody else would have gotten it, because I stayed at home for like 6 months afterwards. So. Coughing without covering up got me popped as a kid. Now I'm the one telling off my parents, because sometimes they do that. It's like, I guess it's like an old people thing, but they sometimes will do that, like at home, and I'll be like, can you not? Like, but yeah, it's so funny. I saw a TikTok recently that was like, oh, you can tell when an American is out and about when you're on vacation, because that's how they literally don't, like, they literally just cough or sneeze. And I feel like over here, it used to, like, everyone was taught to, like, sneeze into the hand, and then later you sneeze into, like, the inside of your elbow or whatever. But I feel like, again, post, I'm not going to say post-pandemic, post-lockdown, people just lost. It's like we went from, like, super careful, everything is, like, everyone is aware and all this shit. Post-lockdown, people are just fucking sneezing and coughing into the air. Like, like not even bare minimum anymore. I'm like, what the hell are we doing? Anyway, in Asian countries, don't they wear masks as a standard when they're ill as a courtesy? Yes. Because in a lot of Asian countries, people have a sense of community. I feel like a lot of Western, like, you know, American, European places are very, like, individualistic, like hyper individualistic. So it's almost like people only care for themselves. It's like the phenomenon of, like, when, you know, COVID hit for the first time, a lot of Asian countries had their shit together. Europe and America, people were selling out toilet paper. So it's like, you know, but yeah, a lot of places in Asia, I know it's like, if someone is like, I'm not feeling too good, they just pop on a mask, and it's like, people don't bat an eye at it. Over here, I'm starting to get stares when I'm out and about and I'm wearing a mask. And I think partially is because I have my hair like this, and you can't really clock any facial hair when I have a mask on. So I feel like it's people trying to see what they're looking at. Like, they're like, who are you? What are you? Like, so that's always great. You got Osmosis Jonesed. I wish I knew what that was. This new COVID strain only has cold symptoms, so it's like hard to say for sure. I did hear, like, Mama Ruby was telling me something about, like, there's like a new COVID strain in the US that's like more dangerous, harder to detect kind of thing. So stay safe, y'all. That's the sample size. Only Americans who don't care about COVID would be in Europe right now. Literally. It's so funny. It's also like there was like a thing. Are y'all aware of like the it's like a Catholic thing. It's like the I don't know how to translate it. But it's like a worldwide thing for like young people and teens and young adults, where like there was an event here in Portugal where the Pope came and it was like a whole thing. And apparently next one is in South Korea, but I think in the meantime there was like a scout assembly camp type of thing in South Korea. And some of the stories that are coming out of it was like, oh, people got COVID and it was like a thing. And people were like, oh, there were no COVID numbers here at our event. And it's like, well, because one, nobody's checking for fucking COVID here anymore. So it's like, maybe there were hundreds, if not thousands, but y'all are not checking COVID. Like, nobody's doing COVID tests anymore. Nobody's doing any COVID checks. So it's like, yeah, there's probably numbers in South Korea because they actually check and they actually do all of this stuff. And they actually have like certain procedures that they do. Over here, it's like, y'all don't care. Like, if someone got sick at this, like, whatever religious event with Pope or whatever the fuck, nobody's checking. Nobody's being like, oh, sweetie, you're sick. Let me see if you have COVID. Like, nobody's doing that. So it's like, anyway, I don't know why I thought about that, but it's like sometimes people do still have this weird thing of like, almost as like COVID is only dangerous in Asian countries because it came from China. And it's like, first of all, the event was in South Korea, so it has nothing to do with anything. And it's also like COVID is still a thing everywhere. It's just that a lot of places just fully pretend that it's not a thing anymore. So yeah, anyway, this has nothing to do with the topic of today, but it's fine. It's totally fine because I'm known for ranting. That's fine. That's wonderful. So what you need to know is that, so you probably, if you inhabit twitch.tv, you've probably come across people doing just chatting streams where they're like watching YouTube videos or they're reacting to things in general. Some people got banned for watching anime or some TV shows or even movies because apparently Twitch streamers understand copyright law but think they're entitled to completely overlook it or to just ignore it. Anyway, tangent. So recently there was a situation where a very popular streamer who goes by XQC, he does a bunch of reaction content, and the reason I say reaction content in quotation marks is because he's started to get criticized seemingly for the first time ever in his life. According, like, from his reaction, it seems like it's the first time he's ever been confronted about the quality of his content. Anyway, and he's been criticized kind of slowly but surely. It's been a trickling thing apparently over the last couple weeks or whatever, where some YouTube creators have started to be like, oh, he just fully uploads our videos with like his camera in the corner. And the thing is, apparently he's not doing any commentary. Like, I watched a couple clips on social media, and you can probably find in your TikTok, on Twitter or whatever. And he fully did a video recently where he started playing a video. He left 5 minutes into the video, I think. He went to the bathroom for like 15 minutes and just let the video play, and came back almost like laughing about the fact that he just did what he did. And apparently that's just a thing that he does. Like, he just sits there in silence while he watches videos that somebody else made, and he's not providing any commentary. He's just literally oftentimes just eating his chips or eating a snack, sipping on his drink, and every once in a while pausing to say like, wow, chat, that's wild, or like, how did they do that? And like, and we're talking about like videos that are like 45 minutes to like an hour, 2 hours, sometimes like longer. And he doesn't give any credit to the creators. He just fully watches them with like no value. And so the thing that is being discussed, and he was on H3 Productions, I think that's the name of the thing, with Ethan. And he was basically confronted about it, like, hey, is your content transformative enough? So for people who don't know, apparently for anyone who's never, and this is wild to me because this is the concept of like fair use. If you've been on YouTube, if you've created YouTube videos from the years of like 2000, like late 2000s, early 2010s, you are fully aware of what copyright is, what fair use is, and all this stuff, right? But for people who may not know, because you've never created content before, fair use is basically this law of like, if you react to someone's like music, or if you react to a music video, or if you react to someone's video or whatever, you can claim that your reaction is fair use if it's a parody of that, or if your content that you're creating, if the reaction that you're creating is transformative enough. So oftentimes what people will do is like, for example, someone will make a reaction to like Titanic, for example, but they will edit the video so that you're not just fully watching the entire movie from beginning to end. They will cut clips here and there, and they will make their reaction to it the main point and all of that stuff, so that it's not necessarily like, you're basically not just ripping off someone's video or someone's film or whatever. You're creating over it, if that makes sense. So there's not like a one-to-one comparison. So apparently XQC isn't aware of this, or I don't know. This, to me, this entire XQC situation is really funny because it's this popular creator being confronted with the reality of what his content is and just completely unraveling as if he's never had any criticism thrown his way anytime ever during his career. And to me, that just speaks to the level of like privilege that some of these big creators have, where their ego becomes so inflated because of the numbers that they have, the amount of subscriptions that they get, the amount of money that they get, to the point where like they can't take criticism, and they just malfunction at the thought of someone being like, hey, you can't do this. And it's like, what do you mean? You must be a paid actor. What? Like, I haven't seen the full extent to any of the debates that are happening with XQC and Ethan and anyone, but I've seen enough to the point where I've cringed, to the point where I've wished that I've never seen any of it. And it's like, this man literally got up and did the worm to get out of a debate. He started calling Ethan old. He started commenting on his relationship, even though XQC is literally getting divorced, apparently. So it's like, it's this whole thing, and it's just like, honestly, it all boils down to like men, particularly like cishet white men, and their inability to take criticism, and they see it as this like personal attack on their ego. And it's like, no, I can't possibly be doing anything wrong because hundreds and thousands of people watch me, and I get thousands of dollars every time I stream, and I have all of this support. And it's like, what? There is a level of humor that I find in it. Like I said, to me, it's really funny seeing a man around my age, which is like almost 30, and just like fully like just throwing a tantrum. Like, there's something to me that's like so interesting about like a grown ass man throwing a tantrum at the mere thought of someone saying like, hey dude, you can't do this. Or like even being confronted, like, is your content transformative enough, yes or no? You would think, I don't know, like, it's, to me, it's wild. It has everything to do with his sexuality, and let me explain. It's not, when I say a cishet white man, I'm being very deliberate in the language that I'm using and the words that I'm choosing to describe him, because it's all of the levels of privilege that are stacked up in this person's favor, right? So the fact that he's white immediately puts him at a level of privilege that is like up there. The fact that he's not marginalized in any way, shape, or form, like he's a heterosexual man, he's white, that immediately makes him, and he's also not trans, so that makes him top of the top as far as like privilege goes. And it's a level of privilege that not many people are necessarily in the same level of playing field with, because yes, you may have seen gay men throw monster tantrums as well, and it's probably because they're white gay men, because again, the levels of privilege there, it's like, well, they're white, so privilege. They're a man. If they're a gay man, then they're still a man, so they're still privileged in that. And the fact that they're gay is makes them a little less privileged, but if they're also straight passing, there's a level of privilege there. So it's just like, it's kind of difficult to kind of explain like on the spot, and it's just like in a straight up way, but I hope I'm making myself understood when I say that. It's like, it's not the fact that like XQC isn't stealing content and throwing a tantrum because he's straight. Like, that's not the bottom line. It's like the fact that it's just like the combination of privilege that he has, him being a rich white man who's not, gay, and he's not marginalized in any way, creates this sense of what's the word? Creates this sense of it's not expectation. It's like you're missing the point, Andara. You're privileged in the sense of like, you're not on state benefits because you're white, and some people are on that because they're black or because they're a person of color, and it's just, again, there's privilege in that, and maybe it's easier for you to get a job in your field than it would be for a queer person of color. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about when it comes to privilege. It's not the fact that white people, especially straight white people, aren't rich because they're straight and white. It's the fact that in life, in whatever circumstance that they're in, there is a level of privilege that they have, and I include myself in it because I'm a white person as well. But it's not, but there's just certain things where, like, if a black person doesn't get a particular job, they can't necessarily prove that it was because that they're black, but there is a chance that that's the case. And historically, that has been the case. It's that kind of thing where, like, we, as much as we like to say that we're a society that's very progressive, that's not the case. So there's still racism, there's still a lot of ableism, there's still a lot of discrimination towards many, if not all, marginalized identities. And yeah, so I don't like the idea, and I think sometimes, and I don't think people do this because they're evil or because they're not aware of stuff. I think it's a thing where when people hear the word privilege, they immediately think, well, but I'm white and I'm not rich, so that means that I'm not privileged. Like, that's not the point. It's the point that we live in a patriarchy, and the fact is that straight white people, especially straight white men, are still being prioritized, and they're still kind of running the world, and they're still, if we're looking at the world as like, like a pyramid type of thing, it's like men are still technically at the top, unfortunately. And I'm not just saying this because I'm not just saying this out of my ass, you know what I mean? It's like one of those things where it's like, it's kind of like that thing of, like, sometimes white gay men are like, oh, I'm marginalized. It's like, yeah, but you're also, like, still a man and you're still white. So it's like, you don't get to just, like, it's like, it's not the same experience. Like, you know what I mean? Okay, let me read what is happening, because a couple messages came through as I was ranting a little bit. I guess he always throws a strop about stuff, though, from what I can tell from the clips we've seen. Yeah, he's just a spoiled man-child who can't handle criticism, essentially. Okay, I already read that. Being white won't solve all your problems in an instant, but it puts you inherently at an advantaged position compared to someone whose situation is identical to you in every way who's not white. Right. XQC would not be as famous or as rich as he is if he wasn't white. Someone like Kai Cenat is a statistical outlier. Right. And even in the grand scheme of things, he's still a cis man. You know what I mean? So it's like, he may not be white, but he's still, like, out of the three things, like cis, white, straight, he's still like two of those. You know what I mean? So even in that, there's a level of privilege there, even though it's not the same as, like, someone like XQC. I'm not aware of affirmative action as a term, so let me look that up. Is it okay? Intended to alleviate underrepresentation and to promote the opportunities of defined minority groups within a society to give them equal access to that of the majority population. Okay, work. Sorry, I'm aware of these concepts, but I'm not aware of certain terminologies because English is not my first language, so I had to look that up. Affirmative action. I don't know about that. Benefit of white women. I don't think Lotus meant that as derogatory. And also not because y'all have a different opinion. I don't think that's why that was said like that. No, it's just one of those things where, I mean, I don't know how else to phrase it. It's just, historically, cis, straight, white people, particularly white men, are inherently in a privileged position, and that's the bottom line. It's impossible for you to exist and be aware of the society that we live in and just straight up be like, no, I'm white and I'm not privileged. Like, that's unfortunate. Like, that's just not accurate, because there's privilege. You would be surprised, and a lot of times it's like, as white people, we're privileged in ways that sometimes, unless we're confronted with it, we don't realize it in a lot of different ways. So it's just something to be aware of. It's not necessarily, when someone points out that, you're privileged, it doesn't mean that you're rich or that you don't have any problems in your life or anything like that. It just means that if you were to be faced with the same problem as like a queer person of color, for example, you would be you would have two very different perspectives. So yeah, but there's some ads gonna be playing, so if I'll try not to get into too many things. In fact, I'm gonna take a break. We're gonna get back into the conversation of like XQC and everything, but I'm gonna take a small break, air out my room a bit, fill up my water, and I'll be right back. It's very warm right now, I'm sorry. Welcome back. I love having these conversations. I know they get a little spicy in the chat, but I really like having them. I still don't remember the word that I was trying to use. It just occurred to me. So I'm going to say what I need to say with this word in mind. And okay, let me try not to get distracted. So, I think with XQC and potentially other creators that are very popular and are maybe not used to a lot of criticism, I think it's a sense of entitlement that kind of comes with it, where it's like they're not expecting any criticism. They're not expecting anyone to ever question them. They're never questioning. They always think that whatever they're doing is for the good and the betterment of society in every way imaginable. It's like, and to my point is, when XQC was confronted, and maybe for a future kind of conversation like this, maybe I'll just bring some clips and stuff like that, and I'll be prepared in that way. But in some things that he says, when he was confronted about like, oh, you just fully re-upload everyone's videos and you get more views than them, and it's not fair to the original creators because you're literally just ripping off their content. You're not even adding any valuable commentary on top of it. And there's two parts to this, right? So the first part is the stealing and the unraveling that comes from someone being like, hey, you can't do that. And then the second part of the unraveling is the fact that someone dares to question the quality of your content. From his perspective, it's like, I'm XQC. I'm one of the most popular streamers to ever exist. What do you mean my content is not good enough? What do you mean there's not a lot of substance to my content? What do you mean? It's like he can't comprehend a simple concept like fair use, copyright law, and even like he doesn't, it's like this level of entitlement and privilege where he doesn't even for a second think like, is this content good enough? Am I adding enough to this? Is it fair for me to just upload this person's entire video while I went to the bathroom for like 15 minutes in the middle of it? Like, you know what I mean? It's like a delusion. It's like to me, it's so fascinating. I know it's horrible. I know it's maybe not horrible. There's probably worse things in the world than that. But like, it's to me, it's so fascinating seeing someone unravel at the thought of like, maybe my content isn't good enough, or like maybe I should change the way that I do stuff. Like nobody even questions like it's not good enough, I guess, but like they question just like you didn't add enough to it to make it your own, and it's like, what? Meanwhile, like this doesn't boil down to reaction streamers, period. And I'm gonna get into that in a second, because yes. Mary, I don't know how to pronounce that. That's why it was there. Also, the idea that it rewards underachieving is a fairly significant reach considering several things. Right. I don't even, honestly speaking, it's not that I don't want to get into that. It's just that there's so much to get into when it comes to that, because I don't know how the concept that we were talking about with affirmative action particularly applies applied in situations or in other countries or in anything like that, because I'm not aware of what everyone is doing with the politics of their own country. So it's like I'm not as informed as I would want to be on that topic in order to say something about it. But as far as I understand, it was supposed to be a thing that made opportunities more equitable and society more I guess that's the main thing. Like, it's supposed to make opportunities more equitable for everyone, right? So the idea that it's like that rewards underachieving, to me, it almost gives that vibe of like, oh, we should hire people because they're talented, not because we want to fill a particular quota, not because of diversity. Almost implying as like, there's almost like the implication that like a diverse workplace means that the people that you hired that are non-white aren't talented, and that they're there just because the company wants to be woke, which I hate. That's like a thing that people like weaponize as like, this movie is woke culture. But I don't like that. I don't like the implications that come with that. And also because there's also like a system in place in a lot of different countries where, let's just say, not everyone gets the same type of access to school. Not everyone gets the same access to education, especially higher education, as far as like university, anything post high school or secondary school, whatever you call it. So it's almost like, oh, that person, because of their background, because of their life situation, doesn't have the same degree as person B. So person A is underachieving, but it's like, it's not about that. It's about creating an environment where person A and person B can get access to the same opportunity, and maybe person I can't keep track of who's A and who's B, but the point is a lot of those things are in concept, as far as I am understanding. The idea is that if someone, for some reason, whether it's because they're a person of color, because they're from a poor family, because they're disabled, or whatever the case may be, that they should still have access to opportunities in the work field or in the school field. That's not the right word, but like in education and all that stuff. And there's like a lot of different factors that play into it. It's like someone who's disabled and queer may not get like the best grades, and that isn't necessarily, or that isn't at all the point of like, oh, they just didn't put enough effort into it or they're underachieving. It's because being a disabled queer person, for example, is a completely different experience than being a white, cishet, able-bodied person. Because that person statistically has less things, like an able-bodied, cis, white, het person has less things that prevent them from like having like a good work-life balance or a school-life balance or studying and having access to good tutors and all this stuff. And maybe, a queer disabled person of color doesn't have access to all of that. And that will probably reflect on their grades. Does that mean that person doesn't deserve or isn't qualified enough to get particular job opportunities? Not necessarily, right? Not necessarily. So that is an example of why I don't like the implications that come with like, oh, this thing is supposed to be a thing that I don't understand. I simply just don't understand. And, I don't know if this is a judgment of character or whatever, and I would hate to do that, but I don't like when people equate a situation where it's supposed to bring equality and make it like, oh, but that's just going to make it so that the standard is lower and people are not going to put in effort, as if like, even with those things in mind, as if there's not so much gatekeeping that goes into it. And even with those things in mind, there's still, Lotus mentioned it earlier, like even with that being a thing, it mostly just benefited white women. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like that conversation with like, over here, there's like some things where people get subsidies, where it's like, if you're a single mom of like 3 and you don't have a job and you live alone, like you are entitled, quote unquote, to receiving a subsidy that usually isn't like all that anyway. But sometimes people have a problem with stuff like that, where it's like, oh, that person is just getting money for free, and like, I'm working so hard and that person is getting money for no reason. It's like, no, she's a single mom of 3 and she can't work because she has 3 children to take care of and she doesn't have a husband. And also, you don't know if she has any medical issues. You don't know if her kids have any any issues that have to do with that. You don't know anything about them, but you just like see them out and about, or like you see them at a coffee shop, and some of these people are over here are like, oh, that person is on like, people call it like minimum wage. I don't know, whatever. But it's like, oh, that person is on minimum wage, and they're all like, I always see them just like at a coffee shop. It's like, what, like, why can't they go to the coffee shop? Like, you just want that person to like stay at home and be miserable just because she can't work full time because she has 3 children and they have to go to school and all this shit. And it's like, and she's a single mom. So it's like, I just don't understand. It's that kind of hyper individualistic kind of stuff to me, that it's like, that person is on like why it's almost like, why is that person getting help? It's almost like everyone just wants help for themselves, and everyone just wants like opportunities for themselves and all this stuff, and they're not looking to the side to be like, oh, that person. It's like it's like when people have issues with immigrants, and it's like, oh, immigrants are taking our jobs and they're doing all of this stuff, and it's like, if being an immigrant is like such an amazing thing like you're claiming, like Carol, why don't you move to a country you've never been to before and you don't speak the language of? And if it's so great, why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? Or it's like, oh, immigrants are taking our jobs. It's like, okay, you can be like, have you applied to that same job? And they're like, no, I don't want to be a receptionist, or like, I don't want to work fast food. It's like, well, well, like, they're willing to do a job for a particular price and you're not willing to do that. So guess what? They're getting the job and you're not. It's like, you know what I mean? I guess what I'm trying to say. Okay, let me read what Sin is saying. Oh yeah, we deviated from the point, but I just, like, just some of the stuff that I was seeing in the chat, it kind of left a taste in my mouth that I wasn't super into. The way people crumble at the idea that they might need to work on their content, right? The content creation is the thing that requires consistent effort, right? And the thing is, like, if you see those things and go, well, that's not fair, people should be equal. Yes, I agree. People argue with the people who made things not equal. Spoiler, that is not me, right? And it's like, people don't understand sometimes, or I don't know if it's a thing where they don't understand, or if they don't want to understand, or if they don't want to see it, or if, I don't know. But it's like this idea that, like, oh, everyone should, like, it should just be equal. Like, whoever, like, I think it's just the difference between equality and equity. And the fact that it's like, in order for, so it's like, me as a white person, with all the privilege that I kind of acquired through life, I've surely gotten opportunities over people who were probably more deserving of those opportunities. But because I had access to, like, be able to, for example, just simple things like get a haircut and get a shower and have, like, a nice shirt to go to an interview for. Maybe someone who's, like, more qualified than me won't get the job because everyone is just, like, supposed to be equal, but it's not equal because maybe someone who's more qualified than me doesn't have the means to buy a nice shirt to go to the interview for, and that alone makes it so that they can't get the job. Just straight up, you know what I mean? Just like little things like that make it so that, the thing that I was talking about with education, right? Like, some families can't afford to put their kids through school. And it's like, if we operate based on, like, an equality thing, then are they just not supposed to ever get a job because they don't have the required, like, parameters for the job? Or I feel like, in my opinion, in a truly equal the thing is, like, everyone, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, everyone who talks about, like, oh, everything should just be equal, don't realize that we don't live in a society where everyone is treated equal. You know what I mean? So it's like, in order for people to be put on the same, it's like saying, like, oh, in order for you to go to that job, you must enter that building, and there's only steps for that building. So it's like, people with wheelchairs can't get into the building. So it's like, if it's equal, then it's like, then it's not equal because there's no ramps. Am I making sense? So it's like the equivalent of like installing a ramp so that someone in a wheelchair can get into a building is like, for example, making sure that families that can't afford to put their kids through school get the means so that they can put their kids through school. But then people are like bitching and moaning because, oh, I didn't get money from the government to put my kids through school. And it's like, you didn't need to. And it's like, well, you could argue that they don't need it to. You don't know. And also, why do you care? It's not like if they don't give that money to that person, they're going to give it to you. Like, that's what I don't understand. It's like, people are like, oh, it should just be equal. But society isn't equal. People don't treat everyone equal. That's just our society. I'm getting riled up. Let me take a sip of my water. Hold on. The people in power don't want equality or equity. They want to keep their millions and their privilege, but they pay lip service to the idea to keep people happy. Yes, that's why people are on strike. That's why people are on strike, basically. That's why people try to fight for better rights and for true equality. And yeah, that is why these conversations are so important, for sure. But it has to start at the basic concept of, we don't live in a society where we're all equal, and we don't live in a society where there's no privilege whatsoever, because there are. And I'm not sitting here being like, oh, I'm privileged because, or like pointing a finger at you specifically, Endar, and being like, oh, you're privileged and you're more you're more privileged than me because you are cis, white, heterosexual, and like you're more privileged than me. That's a fact, first of all. But second of all, that's not a judgment on you, your character, or anything of the sort. It's just a factual piece of information. It's just a factual piece of information. And obviously we don't go, I mean, in a day-to-day kind of thing, you don't just walk up to someone and be like, you're more privileged than me because this, and that. But it's important to recognize those things. You know what I mean? White bashing? Who's white bashing? It's not bashing. It's stating facts. It's stating facts. It's like, oftentimes, the people who are doing a lot of horrible things in this world, and millionaires and billionaires, are cishet white people. It's not me bashing. It's factual. It's based off of statistics. It's based off of reality. It's not bashing. Me saying that XQC is privileged and he's entitled and he's a brat is rooted in the fact that contextually, him being a cishet white man makes him, like, doing a 1-to-1, it's like a lot of those things align with the fact that he's a cishet white man. And it's not like me being like, oh, he's bad. It's like, it's just a fact. It's just how it correlates. Because oftentimes if you see a queer person of color doing reaction content, they're probably not doing the bare minimum. I can guarantee you that they're not just sitting there and eating their chips and in silence and not making any commentary, because they literally can't do that. not that they're unable to do it, but what I mean is like, if you look at a platform like Twitch, if you look at a platform like YouTube, if you're not a cis-het white person, you're likely going above and beyond as far as like the quality of your content, the quality of your camera, the quality of your microphone, anything to get ahead of a lot of the mediocre white men on top of a lot of situations, because that's the way to get noticed. It's like you have to be better than them in every single way. Meanwhile, a lot of people just get away with being the standard of beauty by doing the bare minimum and like having a bare minimum like quality to their setup, bare minimum quality to their content and all this stuff. And it's because they can. It's because they are it's because they can. And it's not a drag on like, it's not an attack on like the way that you were born. It's not an attack on, because obviously, you know, a cis-het white person is who they are. Like they can't be anything else than that. But I think the issue is the lack of the recognizing of the privilege that comes with all of that. And the inability for a lot of cis-het white people to recognize that in the grand scheme of things, they are privileged. Because it's like, even something as like recently, there was like a white blonde actress from Euphoria. I can't remember her name, but she got like cast in a movie to play a superhero who's naturally like a redhead. And there was like no problem about it. But when Halle was announced to play Ariel from The Little Mermaid, her being a black woman, everyone was like, but Ariel is a ginger. She's a natural ginger. And Halle can't possibly be a ginger. And it wasn't about her being ginger, because clearly this blonde and white woman from Euphoria, she's not a ginger either. So, and as far as I'm aware, both Halle and this woman, I don't know, is her name Sweeney or something like that? I don't know. I forget. But both of them have the ability to wear a ginger wig. So it's like, I don't know. I was going to say I don't know what the problem is. I know exactly what the problem is. You want to guess what the problem is there? Or are we all aware of what the problem is? Well, I'm sorry to hear what you've gone through, Andara, and I think what we're trying to mention is the fact that in the exact situation that you're in and all the things that you went through, societally, is that how you say that? As far as like the grand scheme of things, there is privilege in the fact that everything, you did have to fight for everything that you have, and I believe that 1,000%. But there's also an awareness to be had that if you were a queer woman, if you were a queer trans woman of color in that exact same situation, can you recognize that that person's life experience is probably way different than yours, even though let's imagine that both of you have the exact same problem with like the the family issues and having to fight for everything that they have. You can surely recognize that a queer trans person of color in that exact same situation as you have gone through, their experience unfortunately would have been way different than yours in a negative way. Statistically, you can recognize that, right? And this is not to discredit anything that you went through and anything you fought for. Because unfortunately, I think that that's a thing that can come across like me saying that there's privilege doesn't mean that you haven't gone through struggles, doesn't mean that you haven't gone through shitty situations. It just means that you haven't gone through all the situations because you're a white woman. You know what I mean? And sometimes a lot of people go through struggles because they're queer, because they're black, because they're a person of color, because they're trans, because they're gay. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of different elements that just by them existing, it's like already stuff that stacks against them in our society. And it shouldn't be like that, obviously. But unfortunately, it is how it is, and we need to recognize that. You know what I mean? Because it's part of like Sin said, a part of a bigger issue. What I'm saying is everyone has struggles, black, white, Asian. I understand that some people have privilege. A lot of white families get good jobs and because of their status, but is that down to class or color? Oftentimes it is. And two things can be right at the same time. This is not to say that there's not, obviously there's rich black people. And there's, you know what I mean? It's like there's queer people that have better lives than straight people. Like that's not, it's like two things can be right at the same time. It's just that, again, in a major grand scheme of things type of thing, if we look at it, we have to recognize that everyone has struggles, but the level in which they experience those struggles is very different depending on your identity. Straight up. You know what I mean? Oh, let me get that poll out of the chat because we already did a vote on that. Ironically, I had a work meeting on this very topic today. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's you're kind of having, not, you don't have to, of course, but you've that has happened, and like you're getting a deja vu, I guess, of that. Can I speak for the UK? I mean, even in that sentence, the UK is literally historically a colonizer country. It's a country that literally built a lot of their fortune off of stealing from others, stealing from indigenous people in a lot of different lands that they discovered. And that was like a whole other thing. I saw, it's funny but sad, the fact that there was like a whole video on TikTok that I saw of the, like, I forget, it was like, I don't know if it was, I forget if it was London, but it was like the British Museum of History or whatever. And it was like literally stuff that was stolen from like other countries. So like that in of itself is like the system that the UK, specifically in this case, because that's what we're talking about, but the system in which the UK operates in is already a system that puts white people in a hugely privileged place, especially with the royals and all that shit, right? but it already has this system in place that you're mentioning with like that class system. And it's like, yeah, you know, you're mentioning Black and Indian people may get entrenched in the system, but that's like a possibility, right? That's not a thing that is factual. That's not a thing that is happening right now. And that's not to say that there's no like Indian or Black folks in position of power in the UK, but that means that the system itself, and you're recognizing that, but you're talking in particular instances. It's like saying like, oh, Black people aren't privileged because Oprah is a billionaire. You know what I mean? It's like saying, oh, queer people aren't marginalized because RuPaul is a millionaire. Like, you know what I mean? All that is being said is that systemically, in a lot of, if not all, maybe saying all is a lot, but systemically, a lot of the Western society, you know, Europe, America, UK, generally speaking, it's like a society that has a very particular system in place that is rooted in white supremacy. Even the fucking beauty standards are like, you know, are very like Eurocentric. As if, you know, also that whole discussion of like, why is Eurocentric just equal white when people of color exist in Europe? So, you know, that's a whole other thing as well. But you know, it's just one of those things where it literally starts with like recognizing the core issues and the big issues rather than looking at particular instances, because there's always going to be outliers with everything. There's always going to be exceptions to the norm or the rule or whatever. But yeah. It's the idea. It's like, you know, Europe is not that different from the US. Europe is not that different from the US. And I'll tell you that because ever since Donald Trump won the elections in the US, there's been an overflow, not overflowing, but ever since Donald Trump, and particularly like the right wing side of things kind of gotten, I don't want to say awakened, but an extreme alt-right type of movement. Like, it's undeniable that Donald Trump's election and him being president for as long as he did, it would be silly to say that that didn't impact the rest of the world in any way. And it certainly impacted Europe, because I know specifically in Portugal, there was like a couple of like right-wing type of like political groups that kind of risen up from the like nowhere. I know that in other countries in Europe, like Spain and France and stuff like that, a lot of like right-wing conservative political parties have started to gain more popularity, and a lot of them have been getting more and more elected. And also some of these issues that are rooted up in the US are because of the people from Europe who discovered the Americas. So a lot of the issues that actually, like, at the root of a lot of the issues in the US are actually people from like the UK and Europe, because they literally brought the white supremacy and the colonialism bullshit to the US and to South America. And so it's like a lot of those issues are actually rooted within like European standards. I don't want to say standards, but I hope I'm making sense. I think what it is like a lot of, I think the US is just an exaggeration of a lot of issues, and it's like I think the US also operates in a more blatant way. I think the politics in the US are just more, I guess what I'm trying to say is like the politicians in the US are less good at covering up the bullshit. Does it mean that the bullshit doesn't take place in Europe? No, it just means that a lot of European politicians and political parties are better at kind of PR, I guess. And in the US, they're just more straightforward, I guess. And they're more ridiculous, I guess. Like someone like Donald Trump is like, oh, haha, he's a joke. Isn't he so silly? And that's how he's portrayed in Europe, right? But it's like you also see a lot of political parties across a lot of countries in Europe who are very similar in ideology, but maybe they're not as forward or as clownish about it, or they don't make the same spectacle about it. But there's surely been a rise in like a lot of like alt-right hate spewing bullshit that does have a root in the fact that like the second Donald Trump got elected, it just kind of enabled people from all over the world to be like, we can also do that. So you know what I mean? The global rise of fascism is most noticeable in countries with a history of fascism, namely the US and most of Western Europe. Yes. They're different, but in a very real sense. All of the issues in the US they were quite literally imported. Yes. That clown makeup is strong over here. Yes. I wish I could remember who pointed this out, but inequality is so much more noticeable in the US because we're so much more diverse. Yes. You're not going to notice white supremacy so much in a nation where people of color are such a tiny percentage of the population, especially if those countries have explicit anti-immigration policies to try to prevent diversity from increasing. Yes. 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 100%. Living in a country where white people are literally the majority, you see that on a daily basis, and that's how a lot of like the right-wing people kind of, I don't know what the right terminology is for this, but they kind of, it's like a hate parade. For them, it's like the immigrants are taking money from us, the immigrants are taking jobs from us, and the government supports immigrants too much. No, they don't. They actually literally don't. Like Portugal was like a lot of like our president and prime minister were like, yes, people from Ukraine, come here, we're gonna help you and we're gonna give you money and we're gonna give you housing. A lot of them still to this day are waiting for the money that they were promised, or the jobs that they were promised, and a lot of that stuff. But it's also, I feel like it's also not like fully relevant to bring up the specific politics that happened in Portugal, because it's a rampant issue in Western societies, I suppose, like US, UK, Europe. I wish I could. Yeah, I already read that. They'll hardly even let refugees of fucking war in. Yeah, like Portugal will let them in, but then they won't give them the conditions that they need. So it's like, why? You know what I mean? It's like, why would you open your door to them when you're not going to give them money? You're not going to give them jobs. You're not going to give them opportunities, or, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah. It's a nice sentiment to be like, hey, we're going to help you. But then but if you're not going to actually help them, then, you know, it's like, girl. But here's the irony, right? Everyone's like, the fucking, it's so gross. But people over here are like, oh, they will like side-eye immigrants or anything like that, right? But then there was the fucking, I want to learn how to say, oh my god, how do I find out the English name for this? But there was basically like a huge event here in Portugal with like the Pope came here, and it was like supposed to be like an event for like it's like a religious event. It was like a whole week long. It was like a fucking festival. Like it was literally like the Pope tour, or fucking, it's like, it was like the Pope festival. But all of a sudden, everyone who's like so against immigrants and shit, they suddenly were like, oh yeah, we're opening our doors for anyone who's coming to that event and all this shit. And it's like, why aren't y'all doing that for like homeless people or for immigrants? Y'all are clearly doing that for, you know, all of these people that are coming to this particular religious event, but you're not doing that all year long and supporting the people that you know what I mean? It's like, you're not supporting immigrants, you're not supporting homeless people, you're not supporting anyone, but you're opening up your doors to like a random white family from the US because they came to see the Pope. You know what I mean? It's just aggravating to me. Like yeah. Anyway. Our system for refugees is shocking. There's such a backlog and everyone complaining about money spent on hotels for them, but the government doesn't increase staff to deal with the requests, so it's so frustrating. Turning people against refugees, and that's nasty. Yeah, it's literally it's wild. It's wild. And I know some countries here also, some countries in Europe probably also do that, like, oh, we're gonna open doors for refugees so that they get money from like the European Union fund bullshit, whatever. So it's like, a lot of it is also to fund the country, because a lot of countries in the world, period, just look at running a country as if they're running a business. So they're not necessarily putting the needs and concerns of the people in first place. They're putting in, like, how much money can we get from the European Union? How much money can we get from the people? How much money can we get from companies? All this shit. Like, they're looking at it as like, how can we make this country profitable? Even though that's not the point. All of this started because XQC. How did we get here? I don't know. But I love having these conversations with y'all. Public transportation isn't making enough money. It's public service. It serves people. It's not supposed to make money, right? Literally. I fully believe that the reason a lot of European countries actively fund public transportation is because they get money from the European Union to build more infrastructures, or to build more, like, to build train tracks. And you know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of it is like, you're not really doing that because you want to. You're doing that because you'll get money. You'll get like a certain amount of money to build those things, but then you won't actually build them properly, or you won't build them all the way through, or you won't spend all of the money that you got towards it because you're going to save some of it for yourselves or for the country. You know what I mean? But then nurses are on strike, teachers are on strike, and all this shit because they don't have working conditions and they're not earning enough. And it's like, why are we building a new airport when the public education and public health system are actively crumbling, you know? So it's a lot. Shout out to the EU for giving a proper incentive like that. Yes. I mean, it's an incentive, but I think they have to pay it back kind of thing. It's like a whole thing. But yes, at least there's an effort. At least, is it bare minimum? Perhaps. But at least there's an effort there. But yeah, yeah, it's weird. It's the same here. It's like they're building a new airport and they're building like a high-speed train system, and it's like we need to improve literally everything before we get new stuff. Like, you know what I mean? And you would think this would be obvious, but it's like, how about we take care of like the bare minimum, and we get that like cute and working and under control, and then we move on to like maybe a new airport. Like, how about we do that, you know? Trains and planes are great, but priorities, please. Yeah, right? Literally. It's like, like the health system is like, there's like hospitals over here, Lotus, that like oh my God, it's not HR. Oh my God. ER is like not working during the weekends because they're like, we literally can't afford to have like nurses and doctors working the weekends because they're already working like too much. They're already working too much. So we literally can't afford to have people. So it's like there's fully like hospitals over here that are like ER closes at like on Fridays because they're like, we literally can't afford. And you know what they're doing, Lotus? You would think like option number one, hire more doctors. Like as the government entity, what would be the right thing to do? Hire more doctors? Pay the already employed doctors more? Yes. And when I say doctors, I mean also like anyone in the medical field, like nurses and anyone involved in it, right? Option number two, they're literally, I think it's Cuba. They're literally making some sort of weird shady contract, and when I mean weird shady contract, I mean that they're not employing people directly. They're hiring like a company, and they're paying this company that is expected to underpay their employees, and that's what they're doing. It's like, instead of like, and we have plenty of immigrants here, we have plenty of like people that are actively graduating from university in the medical field, like a very diverse bunch of people, but they're actively paying less money to get people from like, I think Cuba to like fill those positions. And in a way almost saying like, oh, if y'all are going to go on strike, we're just going to hire people from literally anywhere else and we're going to underpay them. And then the government was like confronted with like, hey, aren't those doctors and medical professionals from Cuba, are you sure that they're going to be paid properly? And this minister was like, well, we're paying the company this certain amount, so we have faith that they will pay their employees the amount that they would deem appropriate. You were asked a yes or no question, and you weren't able to say yes or no to that question. You just said, well, hopefully. That's not going to solve a problem. You're just adding more people who are underpaid and overworked. Because you know for damn sure that those companies are going to get like most of the money and they're going to underpay their employees, right? Like that's just a thing that's going to happen. It's just a mess. And I think there was also, if correct me if I'm wrong, but there was also a thing that was being questioned about like certain things that had to do with like human rights. I think it was in Cuba. And people were like, what about the rights of the employees? Are we sure that everything's going to be cute? And they were like, I hope so. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? It was like a similar sentiment to like the World Cup and how like it took place in a country where like human rights are not it for like if you're not a man. And basically our government was like, well, we're still supporting our team. And it was like they were so vague about it, like, yeah, you know, we may or may not agree with their ideals. And it's like, you may or may not. What do you mean? Like, it's wild. Right, yeah. But that's the thing with like the problem is not that footballers and actors are paid a lot. The problem is that other people aren't also paid a lot. Because like it's cool that people get a lot of money for doing their job, but it's also like everyone should. But then there's that whole thing of like, oh, you know, more money means the money is less valuable. So it's like, why do you give a shit? Like, just give everyone money. And I'm 1,000% of the belief that like if we're forced to live in a capitalistic society, everyone should just get money to be able to interact with that capitalism. Like maybe if you want a better house, sure, you should have like whatever amount of jobs you want. But like you know what I mean? Like if we're forced to live in a capitalistic society, we should all just get money for like bare minimum, like having a roof over our heads and having enough money so that we're able to buy food and all that stuff. And then like if you're ambitious and you want more, great. But you know, anyway, ads are coming through. I don't want to interrupt this conversation that we're having, so I'm technically gonna interrupt the conversation, but I'm gonna take a little break so that we can get back into it, so that nobody really misses out on the action. So I'll be right back. I appreciate y'all for being here and for having these conversations with me, and I'll be right back. Welcome back. It's so warm right now, y'all. Just in general, you know, because, you know, I'm basically, and when I stream, my room basically becomes a, what would you call it? What is that called whenever you're like growing flowers and like vegetables in like a thing that's kind of like a tent, but it's like made of glass? So it's like really fucking warm in there. What is that called? I forget. Well, I don't forget. Yeah, a greenhouse. Yes, thank you. My room basically becomes just a cloud of warm air. Because it's like my PC is on, I have lights on, My door is typically closed, so it's like there's really no like airflow. So that's fun. Well, that's cute during the winter, but it's not cute during the summer, let me tell you. We can get back to the conversations we were having, but I do kind of want to wrap up the conversation about like the ultimate point of like, are reaction streamers stealing content? Not necessarily. And what I mean by that is that oh, excuse me. As long as people are following the basic common sense of like, if I'm gonna watch something that wasn't created by me, I'm gonna make sure that it has enough commentary. It should be like, if you've ever seen like a DVD that has like director's commentary or whatever, it should be kind of like that. Like, it shouldn't just be like a one-to-one experience of like, you're not just like fully watching a thing from beginning to end without adding anything to it, right? So it would be wrong to say that in general reaction streamers steal content from others. It would be kind of wrong to do that. It does come with like the asterisk of like, some do, which is the case with like XQC, for example. I'm sure there's others that I don't know of that do the exact same thing, because that's also kind of a thing that happens. It's like, one person is very popular and it does a particular kind of content, then other people are going to do the same, and they're almost going to follow that model and example. And it's not a great example to follow, right? But then people use the example of like other streamers like Hassan and H3 Productions and stuff like that, and it's like, I'm not a stan, and I'm not like someone that follows either of those accounts. But every time I've come across stuff that they've done, even if it's like small clips here and there, they seem to be doing commentary on the things that they're watching, or commentary on the things that they're discussing. Like, it's more of like, it's almost like B-roll to what they're discussing and to what they're talking about, rather than like just watching something. And I'm sure XQC has a level of understanding that like, he can't just sit there and watch a movie from beginning to end with no commentary and upload that straight up to YouTube. I'm sure he understands that that wouldn't work because of copyright. So I don't know why he thinks that doesn't apply to smaller creators. Well, I know why, because smaller creators aren't gonna DMCA you necessarily, and they oftentimes don't have the power to, like, even if they report him, like, nothing is probably going to happen. And a lot of them are genuinely afraid to go up against all of these like huge creators, because they're afraid of getting like hate piled, and they're afraid of getting harassed, and they're afraid of all these repercussions that come from like going against someone who's like, who has like a lot of like fans and has like a huge fan base, So do I think the reaction streamers steal content? Not always, but some probably do. That's like the bottom line to it. I always feel weird. And that's why I stopped doing reaction content on YouTube. I used to make videos reacting to like K-pop videos and stuff like that. But whenever I felt like I wasn't necessarily providing like good commentary, I was like, what am I doing? I'm just watching the work that someone else did. Like, I'm literally just, my content is me sitting here and watching someone else's content. And you could argue, and XQC try to make the point of like, oh, we can, technically game developers and publishers can come after streamers for playing their games. And it's like, yeah. If you're sitting there in silence while playing a video game and you're not literally adding anything to it, and you're not talking about anything, and you're not commentating on anything, then yeah, they probably would feel entitled to doing that, because you're literally just ripping off their work from beginning to end and adding nothing to it. Yeah, making transformative work is difficult. Is it impossible, especially for someone as big as XQC? No. He could literally, here's the thing, and hear me out here. He could literally watch a thing from beginning to end and send that footage to an editor, and that editor could make something work that would be transformative enough. The thing is, I do wonder, like, what the hell would the editor do? Like, that person is not saying anything. Apparently, and again, I'm just talking out of my ass here. I've only read like TikTok comments and stuff like that about this, but apparently a lot of XQC's like viral moments were him like falling off his chair or struggling to put a sentence together or farting or whatever. So it's like, you know, but yeah, again, I'm not trying to make a judgment on whether or not his content is good. I don't watch it. It's not for me. And it wouldn't be right for me to be like, oh, his content is better or worse than other people's or whatever. You know? A good example is Anthony Fantano, that music reviewer guy. Pause. Is that that name? I don't know if is it that guy on TikTok who shows like where the samples for stuff comes from, or is that a completely different person? Anyway, he streams himself listening to a new album, and he's mostly straight-faced and quiet while he streams. Then he talks about his thoughts on the album. Excuse me. His thoughts on the album more in depth, and that's what gets uploaded to YouTube as a react. Okay, that is technically not even like, that's technically a review. But yeah, that makes sense to me. He's mostly a reviewer. He's bald with glasses. I feel like I'm probably, knowing myself, I'm better at the talking about a thing rather than like reacting in real time kind of person. So maybe I'll do that kind of stuff on stream, and then I can always edit it down to a thing that makes more sense. Because I'm not someone who's like very reactive, so I'm not someone who's like woo and screaming and jumping and doing all that stuff. I'm much more of a person who's like, I watch something or I experience something, and then like, it's almost like I kind of have to sit with it and sometimes give it a second listen or whatever, and then eventually I'll have like, unless it's something is like very impactful, I don't know how good my reaction per se will be, but I think it's interesting to give out my opinion, and I think my point of view sometimes would be unique in the sense of like, I haven't, like, for example, if I'm talking about a movie I've never seen, like I haven't seen a lot of classics, so I think it would be interesting for me to like watch a movie for the first time, not on stream, but I think it would be interesting for me to watch a lot of things for the first time and give an opinion of like someone who didn't grow up with some of those things or whatever. And I think I do that to a certain extent with games, but I wouldn't say that, and I do recognize that about myself. Like I don't know sometimes if the value of my content per se isn't necessarily in like my in real time type of thing. I think it's more sometimes on like my opinion on that thing, or you know what I mean? I like charismatic voice in Quofi. I am not aware. They constantly pause and talk about technique and stuff, and I like that. Yeah, I like that. Kofi reacts. It's like a first listen react. They'll have a couple shots of him dancing or facial expressions during the actual playtime. That's cute. Yeah. I appreciate you getting the name right. I am not aware either way of who that is, but yeah. I kind of just wanna like schedule streams, but not necessarily schedule games, because today was technically like in the schedule, it was technically a Tomb Raider day. And it's been 2 hours and we haven't played Tomb Raider. And that wasn't really what I wanted to do today necessarily, because I really wanted to talk about this like XQC stuff. And I think I'm going to do this more often, as far as like, if I really want to talk about a particular thing, I think I will, I think I'll just like do more of this kind of stuff, because I'm not good at like doing that thing where like I pick up my phone and I film a TikTok about that thing. I'm much more of someone who like, it's almost like I want to save it and almost for like this setup. You know what I mean? Almost like this is a podcast of sorts, even though it's not. But I would like to believe that I am pretty good at rambling. I think I'm pretty good at whenever I have look at me, just like, I think I'm good at this and that. No, but I think I shine more in like talking about stuff that I'm passionate about, over sometimes like me playing a game and just the content being me sitting there playing a game. Even though I'm not just sitting there playing the game, I'm talking and stuff like that, but you know what I mean? I am pretty curious about the guy you're talking about, though, Lotus. Let me, I'm gonna look him up. I would totally watch you do K-pop reacts, since I don't hear much of it. I have thought about doing them on stream, because it's a thing that you can oh, I've seen this dude before. Is it the Needle Drop? Is that the channel? Ew, y'all could hear that. I'm sorry about that. That scared me. Yeah, I would, and I think I would do a similar thing to what Lotus mentioned. If it ever was a thing that happened on YouTube, I think it would be more of a thing of like, I would probably take moments where like I paused and I made a comment about certain things, but I don't think I would like put out the full thing. Not that that matters to like whoever's watching in real time, but I do like to think about the logistics of a lot of things. And I think music reactions in general, I would be interested in that, because I'm not someone who, like, I have particular niches. Like, I get into K-pop, I get into particular artists, but then like I feel like, for example, a lot of like icons in music, like Madonna and stuff like that, like there's full on albums that I've never listened to, and I think it would be interesting for me to get into particular albums that are like supposed to be iconic or supposed to be staples, and even movies and shit like that. But I'm not confident enough in my reaction content, so I think I would have to rely a little bit on, not rely on editing, but I think it would be more, I would have to rely more on the commentary rather than on the reaction, which is logistically the same thing. Like, you just label it as a as a reaction, it's technically the same thing. But in my head, I would have to reframe it as like, this is not like a reaction, this is like a commentary. Does that make sense? Because it, like, the way I see it is like, reaction is like, oh my god, it's so good. But it's like, that was very pornographic. I hated that. But does that make sense? Ko-Fi exclusive things. I used to do that on Patreon. uploaded this nasty laugh. I uploaded a full reaction to Positions by Ariana Grande, and I did not like that album. And that was like a Patreon thing that I did. I don't know why I'm bringing that up, but yeah, that was a thing. I do have a movie related thing, like idea that I have. But movies are a little more tricky. Because I can't just watch a movie. But I think logistically, I could still do a thing where, like, maybe I record my camera and I record the movie separately. And then I could use certain clips as, like, if I pause during a particular thing, I could use that. But I'm not sure. Because, like, also, like, not always would I have, like, a reaction to a particular thing. Sometimes I would just have, like, an overarching reaction to something or, like, commentary or whatever. Can you tell that my brain is, like, 1,000 miles per hour about logistics and things like that? Yeah. Let me go back. I think it's fair to say, though, having a format where you have an experience and then comment on it, it's edited, it's perfectly fine, and I think it makes sense. Because when I'm watching things, I don't always respond until after I've had time to think about it. And you know what it is about me as well? Sometimes, and this happens, I think, with movies with me, I will watch a movie, I'll have, like, immediate gut reaction, and I've been, like, documenting it, like, I've been writing it out. And then, like, after a few minutes, I'm like, wait, let me revise that. Because, like, sometimes I'll have a strong reaction about a particular thing and I will, like, not like a particular thing. I'll be like, why did that happen? And then it's like, it's almost like my brain steeps in it. And then it's like, no, actually, I really appreciate that they did that. You know what I mean? Or, like, it makes sense that this happened this way and all this stuff. Does that make sense? It's almost like an after the fact kind of thing that happens sometimes to me with music. Like, I will hear a song or an album and I'll be like, that was garbage. And then I'll, like, listen to it again and I'll be like, oh, I love this song, or I love this part of this song, and I love this thing. Like, that happens sometimes with K-pop with me. It's like, I'll listen to a song and be like, ew. And then I'll be like, wait. And then it's like one of my favorite songs. Lotus, you're gonna decapitate me, but that happened with Super by 17. Like, at first I was like, this is an interesting comeback, and then I heard it more and more and more and more, and now it's, like, legitimately one of my favorite songs. And now I'm, like, shaking my ass and screaming, like, I love my team, I love my crew. But, like, I don't know what it is. Like, I think sometimes when I just hear something for the first time, my brain is like, what's going on? What's happening? And then it's like, once it actually, like, I give it a couple more listens, I'm like, wait. Like, I don't know what it is about it. You brought it up because you wanted to get a little saucy. No. You know what it was? I deleted that. And I was afraid of the stands. And I also don't think I made a good video, to be honest. I think it was just a video, because sometimes I struggle with, like, I keep talking and I don't pause it or whatever, or, you know what I mean? So sometimes I don't know. Again, logistics. But you being like, I heard the gays say this was iconic, so, and then giving thoughtful commentary on it would be great. Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm not sure how I would do it I mean, with music, I could literally do it on stream. With music, I can just literally do it on stream. The VOD would probably get deleted. Well, the way that I'm listening to music right now is fine because it's just a separate track, and whoever's watching the VOD, there's no music. But if I were to react to music, I would want to have that recording. So it would have to logistically be different on my end. Or maybe not. Maybe Yeah, maybe I can have that as, yeah, I could literally do that. On like I wouldn't have to change anything. Um, Even though it would be awkward as hell, because logistically it would just me being like listening to a song like, oh, I'm very good, and like the person watching the VOD can't hear it. But I'm very interested in that. I think with movies, I'm thinking of I don't want to spill too much. It's that thing. Do y'all ever do that brain thing where like if I talk about this, I won't do it? So I'm trying to keep this idea to myself of a thing that I want to do where it would be like in my brain, it's like a daily thing, and I would upload like a video every day, and it would be kind of like a series. And I'm thinking of it would be like a TikTok type of format. But I feel like sometimes I'm not great at expressing myself, but I feel like I'm in my head a little bit, because I feel like everyone would jump me right now and be like, no, like whatever. But sometimes I do get in my head of like, I think when it comes to short form content, sometimes I get in my head of like, how do I convey everything that I feel within that particular amount of time? And I almost want to do it in one take and all this shit. And it's like, you don't have to do all that. You don't have to do all that. It's fine. The joy of the edit, 1,000%. Side note, speaking of shorts, the comment sections of my YouTube shorts are hell. Y'all probably saw it on Twitter or on Instagram in my stories. I just had like the most recent one, and it was like, I can tell when a short on YouTube kind of hits, because I've had the double-edged sword of having like 2 or 3 of my shorts back to back hitting like over 1,000 views, which to me is a lot. And most recently I had one that hit over 2,000. And when I tell you the comments on my shorts are so vile, it's like people being like, find God before God finds you. Or like, why do you care? What do you mean it's my video? I'm giving an opinion. Like, I made a silly little video that I took from like a stream where it was like me, because we were playing Ni no Kuni and there was like a volcano section. I was like, girlies, I don't trust volcanoes. I don't trust volcanoes as a touristic attraction. Like, I feel like I'm gonna die. It's gonna shit and piss lava all over me. Like, it was just supposed to be like a little hee hee ha ha. Literally had someone be like, why do you think people care about something that you're not gonna do? Or like, why do you feel the need to announce that you'll never do it? And I'm like, what? and then it's like someone being like, you'll never be a woman. Okay. Like, just like weird, vile shit. Someone called me like Lord Farquaad, and I was like, not this. Like sassy Lord Farquaad or something like that. Needless to say, I've deleted a bunch of comments because my instinct is to reply to them. My instinct is to be like, you're a loser, get a hobby. My instinct is to be toxic and reply to them. But the thing is, I don't want people to watch, like people who come across any of that stuff to like just come across these nasty comments. Yes, I love doing that thing of like when they're like, why are you gay? And I'm like, why are you bald? Or like I'm like, why are you a loser? Like I have the instinct to like give the same energy to them. And it's bad. I don't, it's not cute. It's not appropriate. Like it's not fun. It's that type of thing of like, if I don't support a particular behavior, I shouldn't like do a thing that's like similar to them, even though they're being nasty and it's almost like a self-defense type of thing. But it's not cute, and I recognize that. But sometimes that's what you want to do. Sometimes that's what you want to do. My favorite is when people are like, "You sound like an LGBT person." I'm like, okay, cool. And sometimes I had a comment once. I forget if it was on Twitch or I forget where it was, but I got a comment once that was like, "Why do all gay people sound like that?" And I legitimately couldn't give them an answer. I was like, this is just my voice. I don't know. And I think it's because like a lot of straight men feel the need to like, and some gay men do this, to like deepen their voice, because it's like a toxic masculinity thing where like you talk like this and you try to like, the depth of your voice is equal to like how manly you are, so you just talk like this. But it's like talking like that is such an effort that I feel like a lot of queer people that are like assigned male at birth end up like talking like that and being like, because it's almost like a part of it is like, sometimes it's the opposite of like they put extra effort into being like more femme, but it's also like our expression, and it's almost like the it's almost like a fuck you to like toxic masculinity, but a lot of us don't do it intentionally. Aww. So, Francisca in the chat is someone that I went to school with. And she said, "I'm sorry this happens to you. I'm writing in Portuguese on purpose, but I do understand English, and I'm sorry that those people tell you those types of things. I'm so glad that you're strong and you can overcome that. I'm happy that you've become stronger over the years." I appreciate that. And I think that just comes from all the stuff that you kind of endure. And I'm not perfect in any way. I've made my fair share of mistakes, and everyone has been wrong in their life, and everyone's done, nobody's like perfect. I'm not sitting here and being like, oh yeah, I'm such a victim in this world, and I'm like, whatever. But I think a lot of it is just like, I don't think that I'm necessarily strong, and I don't think that I've necessarily overcome a lot of these things, that I don't think I've necessarily, I do recognize that I've grown a lot since, high school or whatever. And I think it's a thing that mostly has happened online. 'Cause in person, the world is still a scary place to me. And I think it's easier to find a place that is safe and you find people that are like you online versus like real life. 'Cause as much as people want to say like, oh, Portugal is such a safe country and Portugal is all these things, but I'm not even like I rarely wear my hair down when I'm out and about. I still very much try to like not get, what's the word, perceived in public. And even then, I get stares, I get side eyes, I get people don't necessarily make comments to you, but there is a vibe that is not friendly necessarily. So I hate that you personally have that fear as well, because it's just how it is. It's just like, I think I feel more empowered and I feel stronger and I feel better about myself, my identity, who I am, and all that stuff generally online, because it's just easier to do that, right? Like I'm kind of in the same way that trolls are protected by like being anonymous, or like being like you can't actively slap a troll in the face, and that's why they're like the way that they are. It's the same way, but like the extreme opposite for queer people. It's like we almost have like the fact that we're not in person and we can actually argue with someone and we can actually debate certain issues online makes it so that we're ultimately safe to a certain degree. But yeah, thankfully I've grown quite a lot. I think, it's been over 10 years since high school, and I came out ever since, and stuff like that. But it also came with like me not really keeping in touch with anyone, and really curating to a fault like the people that I interact with in real life, and actively like lying to people and stuff like that. Like if I go to work, like I'm not telling anyone that I'm queer unless it's like a thing that like I don't deny it, and I'm not actively, I don't pretend to be straight necessarily, but I'm not actively coming out to anyone because I hear the shit that people say in like the break room or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like I'm not gonna fucking come out to you. Oh, you're LGBT too. I love that. A lot of like we were kind of in a little bit of a friend group in high school, and like a lot of those people were kind of fruity. Maybe not, like maybe one or two weren't, but like most of them were. And it's funny because none of us were really out, but it was, the fruit was there, the queerness was there. It's so funny how that happens too. It's like we just kind of end up gravitating towards one another IRL without even knowing, but we kind of know, but we kind of don't. So it's like a whole thing. You personally have that fear too. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're out as much as you can, as much as you feel safe, and as much as you really can, right? Because it's like IRL things are different. And they're scarier and they're not fun. But it's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Yeah. I've noticed you following, and I've noticed you. I've seen a couple. I've seen you like in my stories or anything like that. But yeah, it's good. It's good to see you. But I forgot what I was saying. I'm talking about a game. I know, right? Yeah, I know. Yeah, right, Sin? It's like, it's like people sometimes just comment on things that you're not even thinking about. Like, I'm not actively thinking about, like, let me make my voice sound a certain way. You know what I mean? And it's like, people question all that stuff. Or, like, it's, like, the comments on shorts are vile. And apparently it's just a thing. Like, I've had someone tell me on Twitter that it's the same for them. And it's funny because on TikTok, it's not really, like when a video hits on TikTok, it's not really the same energy. Like on YouTube, the shorts comments are like a whole other level. And I don't know if it's, I'm not saying TikTok is better. But it's a different experience. It's a different experience. I don't know if anyone else has kind of had that, because I've been trying to make a little big of a bigger of an effort to upload, like, you know, do that thing that everyone says, like, be more active on Instagram and TikTok and like not Twitter, which is exhausting because a lot of those apps are like video and photo based. So it's like I have to always have a picture or a video attached to anything that I do. However, I feel like it is kind of necessary that I do that if I want to get myself out there. I'm forgetting my point. Oh yeah, but that comes at a cost of, like, you know, sometimes I do recommend that you use the same stuff everywhere. Like, you know, if you're going to post a video on TikTok, post that same video on YouTube, because it may flop in one platform, it may do well on another platform. But sometimes it's just like the mental I don't want to say struggle, but like, you know what I mean? Like there's a certain level of like bullshit that comes with it, of like managing all these different like platforms, and also like trying to figure out what works in some places and what doesn't in others, and also dealing with like how the different audiences will react to you, because on YouTube it's wild. I had to like turn off notifications on my phone for the YouTube Studio, which mistake number one was having notifications on for that. But I don't have notifications for TikTok. I don't have notifications for basically anything anymore, because I need to be a little removed from the social media platforms as far as notifications go. Like, I don't need to respond to a comment the second it gets posted. Like, I can always just check it later at a time where I'm mentally okay with like whatever number I see next to a video, or to whatever I'm gonna read in those comments, if that makes sense. Like, I don't need to be reading a comment, like a negative comment, right before I go to bed. You know what I mean? So there's that. It does, because the way people want an immediate response, well, they're gonna have to fucking wait. Right, I'm sleeping. Literally, a lot of my videos hit at like 11:30 p.m., like 1 a.m., whatever, and I'm like, I'm going to bed. Like, I just know that whenever I go viral, it will happen. It's gonna be that awful scenario of like, I post a hee hee ha ha video, I go to bed, and I wake up to a shitstorm. I just know it, because a lot of my stuff hits like after a particular time that I'm trying to be good at and going to bed at a good time. So I just know whenever bullshit is going to take place, I'm going to be after the fact, like, oh, like, oh. Do any creators in the chat feel like you're ever too involved in social media? Because sometimes I think I am too involved or too exposed to what everyone else is doing, and it almost is like too like a fault, because it almost it doesn't. Well, sometimes it does deter me from creating my own stuff, because I look around and I'm like, well, everyone else has already done that better than I could ever do. Or sometimes I'm like, I look at the logistics of how everyone else is doing what they're doing, and I'm like, I don't know if I can compare to them, or I don't know if I, like, does that make sense? Like, I feel like sometimes I'm a little too involved in, like, not the meta, because I don't really follow a meta, but sometimes I think this is mainly a thing sometimes with like YouTube videos or Twitch streams or stuff like that, where it almost feels like there's a format to how people do stuff, and sometimes I feel like I'm too involved in, like, I kind of like, you know what I mean? It's like there's a recipe that I'm like not following, and I don't necessarily want to follow the recipe, but it almost makes me feel inadequate, or it almost removes the sense of like creativity from it all because I'm so involved in it. And I know it's a me issue. I know it's just a me thing of like, maybe don't open Twitter 500 times a day. It's not like, it's not that I'm addicted to it. It's just that it's a default. It's like, sometimes I'm literally opening Twitter and I'm like, why are you opening Twitter? And it's literally just because I want something to look at, or I want some, like, you know what I mean? But comparison is a bitch. She's a bitch, because I will literally compare myself to everyone and I'll be like, oh, like my phone quality isn't as good as that person, so maybe I should film it in OBS. And even when I film in OBS, I'm like, it's not as good quality as if I had like a better camera, or it's not like, maybe I should use this background. Maybe I should use my regular room as my background. Maybe I should film somewhere else. Maybe, like, it's like such a thing where I'm always like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I don't always, like, I don't know what it is. It's almost like this FOMO, but the FOMO almost turns into like, I become more of a consumer than I am a creator. And I feel like I used to not be like that. Which I don't know if that's necessarily a good or a bad thing, but I feel like I used to be more like, I followed like my friends on social media, and I followed like people that I wanted to follow. But follow your heart and you will get where you want, believe me. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Sometimes it's difficult to do that, because sometimes I'm like, I have an idea and I'm like, how do I do that? Or like, you know, how do I make that happen? Or whatever. Or I'm not good enough, or other people already did this, so what's my video gonna add to the conversation? Nothing. Like, whatever. But I'm trying to be better at like sometimes booting up a stream on Vegas Pro and being like, okay, let's find a little moment for TikTok, you know, let's find a little moment for the shorts, let's find a little moment for the girlies to enjoy. So I do like doing that. It's like, I almost look at Twitch, and I don't know if that's the best way to look at it, but I almost look at Twitch as like a big recording session. And then like anywhere else where my stuff can go to is probably going to be like, or it probably should be like an edited, curated version. And that's, you know, that's probably a good way to look at it. I need to charge my phone. Other people will never be you. I think it might help. Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. I'm the only one. What's that? Oh my god. Alien Superstar, Beyonce, that intro. I'm one of one. I'm the only one. Don't even waste your time trying to compete with me. Honestly, that song is like great affirmations there. You know what I mean? It's also funny because you listen to it and you're like, yeah, you can say that because you're Beyonce. I have no idea what music is playing at this point, by the way. I'm just on YouTube Music and it's just playing shit. So there's that. That is exactly it. I agree. I've been kind of feeling like shit this week. I know we've kind of we're kind of done with the topic, right? We're kind of done with like we've come to the conclusion that reaction streamers are not stealing content, but some are, because they're literally just sitting there. It's like, I hate to criticize other people's content, but sometimes it's baffling to me when I open twitch.tv and someone is literally just like watching something in the most low effort type of way, the least transformative, most low effort thing that I've ever seen, and they're getting like hundreds or thousands of views, and I don't get it. Because I think to myself, like, I could do that, but it's like I don't feel good about myself when I do. You know what I mean? It's like I try to do that with like I try to make like co-working streams, and I understand the value in that, but in my head I was like, I'm literally just sitting here, my mic is muted, and people are just watching me exist. Like, this feels wrong. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying there's no value to that, because at least with a co-working thing, like it's different, but at the same time I'm like, for when I'm making it, I feel bad. I feel weird. I'm like, this isn't good. Like, I'm just sitting here existing and people are watching me exist. Like, this feels wrong. You know what I mean? Hi, gay. Hi, Flop. How are you doing, Percy? I'll be honest on main. I low-key prefer doing this over games. But the thing is, I don't always have a thing that I'm this passionate so that I can talk about a particular thing for 2 hours or more. Or, you know, less or whatever. But, you know what I mean. But I genuinely love almost like having this unhinged podcasty type of experience. It's kind of fun, you know? I like literally just chatting. Because I'm also not just sitting here and waiting for comments to pop up and for y'all to ask me questions, because I'm literally rambling. Like, I knew I was going to have plenty to talk about with this topic. At least for an hour. Like, I wasn't expecting to talk about it for like 2 hours, but we kind of derailed a little bit from the main topic. Thriving without the threat of unaliving. We love that. We love joy. We love hashtag blessings in life. No, that makes me very happy, Percy. That genuinely makes me happy. I don't know how to like earnestly be like, you know, because I feel like, I'm like, yay, but you know what I mean. As a person who doesn't talk much at all ever, I am unfamiliar with the concept of rambling. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, but you know, and I appreciate you so much, and I every time I see you, it makes me happy. And you always make me smile. People thought that tweet was a joke. I clocked it. I also didn't know how to react to it in a non-jokey way, which is why I did the hashtag blessed from like straight from the I've Had It podcast. Because I was like, this is, I understand this is honest, but it's also in a joke way. And I don't want to be the one to be like, you know, I'm so happy for you. Like, I don't want to be like too earnest, because this feels like I could just be fun. I could have fun, you know, and I love fun. Me being positive, shocking, new territory, and you always make me happy, literally fucking always. Aw, we love fun here. We love fun. I love speaking in exaggerated ways, and it makes me like, that's why I like some of my favorite like pieces of content is like a lot of the shit that Katya says I would never, and it's like unhinged, and it's like sometimes it borders the line of problematic, but I love the exaggerated way in which she talks about mundane things, and I value that. I value that. Is that the right way? I appreciate that in people like Delta Work, in the ladies from the I've Had It podcast, in you, for example, Percy. Like, I appreciate like people who can talk about the most mundane things in the most exaggerated, elaborated way. Sometimes I feel like I don't have the vocabulary for that, but I love, like, and I'm like this in IRL. Like, I'm like, let's say like a spider crawls up my leg. A normal person would be like, oh, a spider crawled up my leg. Ew. I love the exaggeration of being like, my life was on the verge of ending today. And someone being like, why? What happened? You would not believe this. There was a spider. The spider started a journey up my leg. I spotted the spider and it was a nightmare. Like, I love the idea of like taking like a mundane thing and just talking about it in a way that's, to the lack of a better word, extra. Those two are my constant stream of consciousness, treading the line of problematic shit and all. You don't see yourself, but you do exactly that. You know what it is? I think it's also like me feeling uncomfortable with like silence, especially when I'm streaming. So it's like I will say the same thing like in 3 different ways because I want to, I want to elaborate on that. And sometimes there's not much, like if you were to squeeze that orange, there's not much juice in it, but I will talk about it a lot. I had to join witness protection. I was held at gunpoint by it. Right. Right. I love that. I love that shit so much. I love that shit so much. Like, a really good storyteller is like the best for me. Like that girly that does like those videos on TikTok where she's like, things that are none of my business. Very simple concepts. The way she talks about them cracks me up so much. I hope that y'all are aware of who I'm talking about. I don't know her name and I wish I did. I can look that up immediately, but I'm pretty sure TikTok will jump scare me audio wise, so I'm not going to do that. But I love that. I love that kind of shit. Like she could literally, instead of saying like, oh, I look ugly in my passport picture, she's like, I don't align. I don't politically align with the way that I look at the post office. Like, just shit like that makes me so happy. I love like the extra spicy ways in which people talk. It makes me so happy. Like, I mean, a prime example is Delta Work, right? Like, someone who can literally talk about going to a fast food chain and, like, the most mundane issues that she doesn't really care that much about. Like, to a bottom line, like, it's not that important to her, but it's important enough that she will go on, like, a 15-minute tirade about it. You know? And I appreciate that. You know, I very much appreciate that. I do want to learn. I do kind of want to expand my vocabulary. My vocabulary. And I know it would be very easy doing so by reading. However, I would like to not do so because reading takes a lot of work. I have like 5 audiobooks that I've downloaded and I haven't listened to a single one. That's the absolute truth. Also, ads are going to play, so I'm sorry. I have no control over that. I can't snooze. I should have snoozed them actually, but I didn't. So I'm going to fuck off and I'm going to BRB for the next 3 calendar minutes. and I will continue this this meeting shortly. So I'll be right back. Any carrots in the chat? Any cabbages? That was so annoying. That was disgusting. Okay, the joke is that the music that's playing is from the K-pop sensation 17. Their fandom name is Carrot, not carrot as in the vegetable, but as in like carrot, like CARRAT. And I made a cabbage joke because like any carrots, any cabbages. So okay, cool. You can shame me now. You may throw tomatoes my way. You may humiliate me at this present moment because it would be deserved. On that note, welcome back. Very much appreciate you being here. And I was thinking a lot during this break about how I wanna do some of the things that we were talking about earlier. Like some of the music reactions perhaps, and some of the commentary stuff that was kind of being thrown around conceptually, because I'm just like an annoying bitch that has a lot to say. No, I don't always have a lot to say, but I like to talk. And I like to give my opinions on things unprompted, and sometimes they're not like, you know, interesting. Like one time I made a whole Patreon video about how I thought Avatar The Last Airbender should have been like a movie, and perhaps like a movie trilogy even, instead of a series, because it was kind of painful to watch all like 2-3 seasons of it, because it just kind of was a little boring in the long run. But regardless, that's neither here or there. I'm going to start a TikTok of me wearing a wig and discussing everything that isn't my business. Call myself commentary. You need to do that. You need to do that. That gagged me a bit. That gagged me a bit, girl. You got me. I'm sold. I'm sold on that. You know what it is though? I'm gonna be vulnerable on main. I'm afraid of the K-pop stans coming for my jugular, because you know what I think would happen? I think I would go live on twitch.tv/Project Ruby. I would listen to like a new album from a new artist, not a new artist necessarily, but like a new comeback from like an artist. Chances are I wouldn't love it upon first listen, which would result in like maybe not the nicest, like I wouldn't be a cunt, right? But like maybe I wouldn't be like, oh my god, I love this so much, you know? And you know, I don't know if I could take it. But then again, if I can handle the homophobes and the transphobes on a daily basis, I think I can handle. No, you know what? Some K-pop stans are scary. Some K-pop stans are just terrifying. So, you know, maybe I'll avoid. They did make a movie of The Last Airbender. And that was the point that was made to me. Was like, oh, they made a movie of The Last Airbender. It was live action and it was shitty. It was shitty because it was live action and poorly produced. Because animated movies are wonderful. We love animated movies, right? Disney has made a whole catalog on animated movies. And Nickelodeon has made animated movies themselves. I just think, you know what? Like, honestly, you know what they could have literally done? They could have just turned each season and just made like a little, like hour and a half, like little edit. Just like, honestly, like take all of the episodes of like season 1 and like edit all the filler out. And I'd be great. It would be great. It would be wonderful. You know what I mean? Like, I honestly, like, what bothers me sometimes about series is that, you know, it takes a bit to get to the juice. And it's the old in me. Like, I'm not even 30 yet, but I feel older. Sometimes it just feels like I'm not into that idea of like, oh, watch this thing. It's going to get good after episode 15. Like, I'm not going to watch 15, 20-minute episodes of a show in hopes that I'll like it after 15 episodes. You know what I mean? I've never seen it, but the animations are generally better as I love feeling like a kid watching cartoons again. Oh, trust me. Avatar The Last Airbender is ultimately not bad. Like, I didn't enjoy my experience watching it. There were, like, some good moments in it. My problem was mainly, like, it would take so long for something substantial to happen that it just wasn't a fun experience. It wasn't a fun experience watching it. And also I have a lot of problems with it, as far as like, you know, how a lot of it is like based on real stuff, but also kind of not, but also kind of glamorizing some things, but also kind of not. It's like, and it's also like, it has like a very particular aesthetic to it, but everyone creating it isn't of that experience. Let's just say that. So there's just, you know, there's some issues that I take with Avatar The Last Airbender as a concept. I lived through the early Drag Race stands. K-pop girlies don't make me blink. I was in Super Hulock on Tumblr. Come at me. I bully you worse than the internet for fun. Edit out all the filler. That's impossible. The Vivienne won. You can't edit out a winner. Avatar, I don't know her. We love a war. We love propaganda. Please welcome to the stage Miss Genocide. That's basically the pitch for Avatar The Last Airbender. Is that not like the pitch for Avatar The Last Airbender? Damn. Throw in a cop. And yeah. Oh my god. Oh my god. I've never seen it, but I've heard about Avatar once. It's one of those things where it's like a cultural phenomenon, and I don't know. I don't know if it's a thing that you can appreciate it for what it is. Like, I can see how people find enjoyment in it. And I found enjoyment in it sometimes. But yeah, I think it's also like a thing where like, it's one of those things where like a lot of people found that was a particular experience that they had. I guess what I'm trying to say is like, it's almost like if you're an adult who's never seen like Hannah Montana and you watch it for the first time as an adult, you're probably not gonna get, like, it's not gonna give what it gave to those who watched it at a particular time in their lives, right? It's kind of that sort of thing. It's like there's just certain generations that grew up with certain things, and cultural phenomenon. Ruby, what are the first 4 letters? Cult? No, not this. Not the alien. Not the alien emote. God. You just crack me up. You just crack me up, Percy. I literally just got out of Scientology and divorced Tom Cruise. I can't do this again. Not again. No. One time was enough. Are people in the general public not aware that Tom Cruise and Scientology are directly correlated? Because I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like a lot of people just stan Tom Cruise, straight people. They do not know that a lot of celebs are in that mess. Yeah, but but it's like a weird situation because like he's dated like very high profile people who basically have spoken out against Scientology, and like wasn't like Nicole Kidman or something like that, like a big, like, you know, like, so it's like, but then again, it's like you look at Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie and it's like people still to this day are like, oh my God, Brad Pitt is so hot and all this stuff. And it's like, are you not looking at like what happened with like why they separated and him doing like why the kids don't like, or some of the kids don't want to keep in touch with him and all this shit? Like, I guess the average person doesn't know, or like they just see a lot of that stuff as like, they just kind of ignore it, or they just kind of like, they just see all of that as gossip and they're like, oh, I don't want to get into that, any of that. I don't give a shit. It's Elizabeth Moss. Elizabeth Moss. During the filming of Australia, there was a Scientology overseer on set to ensure Nicole didn't ruin Tom's image. That's wild. That is wild. Yeah, he's weird. I think people just see him as like, oh, that quirky, funny guy. Like, I don't even, like, I haven't watched a single documentary on Scientology and stuff like that. Like, I'm just vaguely aware of stuff. And like Leah Remini and all that stuff, but like I'm vaguely aware of stuff. But it's yeah, John Travolta is in it. Who, again, you know, another peculiar character, we can say that. If you ever want the Scientology tea, let me know. I will make your questions. I will make your questions on an off-air listener. Please do. It's just like it's like sometimes I literally just like it's just one of those things where sometimes I'm like, are people not aware? It's just like, is this a thing? Is this like a chronically online thing? Did you really? Are you fucking with me? You once infiltrated a Scientology base out of sheer curiosity and still get letters from that head organization? Are you? Is that true? Are Goldie and Kurt Russell in it too? I seem to remember something. She left after a class. I have never been more serious. I swear on Cher herself. Oh my God. That is so funny. You have lived many lives. There's like the Percy lore is ever expanding. all of them involve getting into some shit. Yes. Yes. We have a Scientology center here. Oh my God. I used to walk past it every day and worried I'd be snatched in there. That's so scary. That is genuinely really scary. You know what is fucking rampant over here? The Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, they're everywhere. Like, they literally will, they literally have little posts where they park, like in front of a grocery store, in front of the metro, in front of like a haunted house. I don't know, like in front, like they're just anywhere, everywhere, all at once. Like, and I have family in it, and that's like a whole other thing. That's like a whole other thing that I don't know if I should get into. And it's like, everything about it sounds like a cult. Like the way that they like talk about stuff, the way that they try to recruit you, it's like, it's cult vibes. I've been posting on Insta about the haunted tourism chapter in my life. I do remember that. Genesee witnesses send me letters in unmarked envelopes, and I just forward them to the police department. That's scary. We got those too. I'm a non-practicing Catholic, but I tell them I'm a witch and a pagan, and they run. That's funny. It is a cult. Do you know about the Watchtower? I don't know if I do. You've struck gold. Cults are a special interest of mine. Oh my God. That's so funny. No, I don't know about the Watchtower. So we do get because okay, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna be very vague about it, but I have two family members in particular that are Jehovah's Witnesses, and they would do that. And I hate to say this because I don't hate them. That's like the weird thing. Like, I don't hate them, right? But they would do this thing where they would just come over, right? Like they would ding dong, like while they were doing their thing of like walking, like going door to door kind of thing, they would like ding dong and they would come here under the guise of like family hanging out, ooh, fun. And then it would be like a matter of minutes until the propaganda would start. And it was always like so, it was always so sad, the concept, because like they actively believe in it. So it's like they genuinely believe that they're trying to save our lives. They genuinely believe that if they convert us to it, they're saving our lives. So it's this weird emotional manipulation, and I don't think they realize that they're doing it, or that they did it. And I think it took like one of my parents to be like, you know what, like it's cool if you want to hang out, but we're not here for that. Like, we're not, you know, you can drop the religious stuff, like we don't really care about that. The way they stopped coming over, and it's like years ago, right? But they would like put in like those like pamphlet magazine things in our like mail thing, because, you know, they would, if they were around, they would do it. And sometimes Mama Ruby would read them, and I'm like, don't even. I'm like, it's a cult. It's a cult. It's wild. Anyway, Watchtower magazine they print. I have snuck into. Oh, Percy, stop sneaking into cult compounds, please. It's basically that magazine that's interesting. The top brass used to send weird brainwashing dictations in code in it. Wait, what? I believe it, by the way, but I'm just like, I mean, a lot. The interesting thing, I actually have like, it's actually the amount of Jehovah's Witnesses that are directly and indirectly part of my life, too much, actually. Um, but it's honestly deep. It's like deep rooted in like Christianism, but like not that. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's this, but it like the values are very similar, but it's also like not that. It's also like, but we make our own rules. You know what I mean? It's like, okay. Propagandy. Stop. So they used to. But what would be the like what do you mean? Like you would be reading like the pamphlet and it would say like join us, we'll save your life, and then it would be like just like a random story like we'll save you, save yourself, like just like randomly in there, just like sprinkled in there. But it's wild because it's also like smart people, and you would think, but you know. It was very heavily encoded as a dog whistle to the leadership to spread particular messages. Such as what? I'm like, what? I'm also I feel like I've only, I wouldn't say recently, but over the last couple years I've been more familiar with the concept of like dog whistling as a concept, as a thing. Because like um I've always understood it, but I've never had like the words to describe it. um but yeah, so it's very interesting, like that concept to me of like, because obviously maybe not obviously, but as someone who's very likely neurodivergent, it's always interesting to me like what are some cues, like what are some like social cues to things. And um like with, you know, certain politicians, and they, you know, like certain things that they say about like, they start bringing up like immigrants and shit like that, like some of the commentary that is like supposed to be subtle, and that implies certain things, right? um I've only recently, when I say recently, again, like maybe last 5 years, I've been more like aware that those were dog whistles. um Birthdays are evil, Christmas is satanic, and RuPaul cheats on her taxes. I get that. Yeah. That that whole thing is like, because it's the religion of like, we don't celebrate anything. We don't celebrate birthdays. We don't celebrate Christmas because Christmas is pagan or whatever. Like the justification that they use is like, Christmas is pagan and we're not that, so we don't celebrate Christmas and we don't celebrate birthdays, because I forget why, but yeah, it's like a whole thing. Just say you don't like fun. Need to shower, sounds good. Enjoy your shower. I don't know if I don't know if I'll still be live by then. I don't know. This stream is very unprompted, and not in a way of like, oh, I'm just here and I don't know what to talk about. In a way of like, we've derailed, or like, you know, we've completed the course that we were here for, and now we're just on a path to God knows where. Can even use traditional Christmas colors on candy during December. What? Just say you're boring, poor. Yeah, it's wild, because like it's one of those things where like, if you think like the church of like, you know, Christianism, Catholicism. If you think that's evil, you'd be correct. But it's like a whole like thing. It's like a whole other thing. Like there was like a report, not a report. What do you call it? A journalistic investigation that was done in like institutions that are like Jehovah's Witnesses, and the amount of shit that was happening, like they go to their own doctors and they do, you know, they have like their own system, you know, like they go to their own doctors, they have their own lawyers, they, like everything is very like hush hush, everything like takes place within their own bubble. It's scary. It's scary. Don't get me started on the Book of Mormon, more like the Book of Snormon. Wake me up when Jesus gets machine gun titties in the 4th book. Christian Scientists. I know nothing about Mormon, the religion of Mormonism. I don't know. Because I don't think that's much of a thing here. But to me, it's just like I want to I'm that type of person. I always forget if it's agnostic or whatever it is. Like I'm the type of person that like I want to believe that there's like, I don't want to say necessarily a God, but like I want to believe in something, but none of the like institutional, I don't think institutionalized is the right word, but any of the like organized religions are like it. But at the same time, I do recognize that that's like, I'm the technically perfect candidate for a cult leader to recruit me, like from their point of view, because they're like, oh, this person wants to believe in something, but they don't believe in like the systems in place. But like I'm also not going to believe in you. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm not going to believe in your system. If anything, I'll believe less in your system because it's all like even more blatantly made up. So it's like fagnostic. I love that. I want to believe in the power of homosexual tendencies and limp wrist boys. I love that. I love that. You know what it is? My thing is like, I feel like I don't know if I don't actually believe, but it's like I want to believe, but I don't know if I do. Because the more, like every time religion is a topic, the more and more I talk about it, the more and more I believe it's all kind of made up. You know what I mean? But I'm also that type of person that I don't believe a lot of things just happen for no reason. You know, like I also believe some things are like, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to say like they're more than coincidences, but I also don't want to say that they're just, you know what I mean? It's like a weird line that I'm in where I'm like, I don't necessarily believe, but I don't necessarily not believe, you know? Sometimes I just want to go into the woods and start a cult for fun. Not this. Not that. There's a cult here in Portugal, actually, that is getting investigated because a baby died. And, like, the baby wasn't registered into, like, the system. And that's somehow legal. And there was, like, another baby that was, like, they didn't cut the umbilical cord and it was, like, plugged into, like, a vase with dirt on it or something like unhinged. I forget what the name of it is, but it's like a bunch of people that just apparently it's like in the Portuguese constitution there's like stuff about it that's like that makes it so that they can technically do some of the stuff that they do there, but they're under investigation because, like, let's just say that they're kind of off the grid, you know, they're not necessarily like, you know, they're not operating within 1,000% legal things, so it's wild. And I feel bad for them, for like some of the members, because it's like I feel like they genuinely believe that like they're doing something, you know, they genuinely believe that they're changing the world, and they're like, you know, that they're doing great things and they have great values and all this shit. And it's like it sucks, you know. We're gathered here today at the meeting of the 43rd National Poopy Fart Club. Sounds like you need to download that video game, Cult of the Lamb. Well, I mean, our topic of today, like big streamers stealing content, people defending them. Let's talk about cults, mama. The XQC stands defending him. Let's talk about a cult. Some fandoms are very culty, including like K-pop fandoms and shit like that. Like, and a lot of those like systems are in place for fandoms to be kind of culty, because if the artist does something inappropriate, all of the fans are going to defend them, and it's wild. But yeah. And this doesn't apply only to K-pop fans or only to streamer fandom. It's a thing. Just fandoms in general can be kind of culty, you know? But anyway, I liked today's stream. So thank you. I liked today's stream. I don't know how much of this I recorded the whole thing, so I don't know how much of this is gonna make its way onto YouTube or any short form type of platform. But I enjoyed today's stream. It was nice. I liked just talking shit with y'all. And I just genuinely really enjoy these streams. Whenever I'm like semi-prepared with a thing to talk about, that's usually a good, you know, when there's like a baseline of what to do, I like that. I don't know. I've just, I want to continue playing video games on here because I feel like that's like kind of an easy, because I also like talking about video games and my opinions on them and experiencing them for the first time and kind of documenting that experience. But I also, I'm like trying to fight my inner urge to put myself in a box and just be like, you're a gamer, everything that you make has to be gaming related, everything you do has to be gaming related, when that's not the case. So yeah, and I know that's very obvious, whatever, but sometimes the brain is like, even conditions itself into being like, okay, every idea that you have has to be related to this particular topic, and that's not true. But yeah, I think it would be fun to make things on here that are related with my interest of K-pop, mayhaps. I think it could be fun in general to have like reaction-y, like maybe me listening to a particular album. I'm not thinking about one in particular. I'm just saying like in general, I think it could be cute to like put on an album for the first time and make commentary about it. I want to do that for films, but it's a little bit more tricky to do that on the logistics side of things. Because I'm not going to upload like a full reaction to a movie. Like that's not going to happen. And I can't really do it on stream. And it's just a different experience on stream. Like I can't just like, even if I'm not showing it, it's like it's just because it's like a longer thing. Like an album, we can listen to it and I can like pause it and like talk about it. I guess I can do that with a movie, but the experience I think would be a little different. So I feel like I could do that off stream and just kind of figure out a way to deliver that to an audience. I don't know how. I don't know what that would be like. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I appreciate y'all and thank you for being here with like all of the through like all the different things that I do, because some of y'all are really like here for anything, and that means a lot to me. I know that sometimes you know, it's easy for me to look sometimes at statistics and numbers and all that stuff and feel a certain kind of way about it, because we all do. And you know, everything that we do, we tie a sense of self-worth to what we do, especially as creators. I feel like, you know, sometimes other than like feedback from people, sometimes you get your feedback from like numbers and all that shit, which is not cute, it's not fun, and it's not something that we necessarily should be doing. So I'm not saying this from a perspective of like, oh, a lot of people watch this stream, because I have no idea. I'm not like, sometimes I peek, but I have no idea really, and I don't really care to know that in real time. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like, it's nice to have these conversations. It's nice to talk about a lot of things with y'all. It's nice to have these moments where I can just talk, and I'm not necessarily expected to do one particular type of thing here on stream, and that's nice. And that's very nice. And I like almost like having like streaming be like a low pressure thing where like I can just talk about stuff without labeling it as a podcast. I can, you know, do a reaction to an album without necessarily labeling it as like a reaction. I can just, you know, for the time being, it's just what it is, and I can worry about the logistics of it all after the fact. I don't know where I'm trying to go with this. So I'm just gonna say slay. No, I think y'all know. I think y'all get what I'm trying to say. I just appreciate y'all being for whatever era I'm here for. As far as like Ni no Kuni and Tomb Raider, which is like two games that I'm currently playing, I will still be continuing them. There's probably gonna be. Today was definitely a day where I really wanted to talk about the XQC thing and like just generally in that topic, and I was probably gonna play a game afterwards, but that's just not how the cookie crumbled, which I don't really care about, which is why the stream is also not labeled with like a game or anything like that. And I think I'm gonna do that more often. I think I will have probably, there's going to be situations where I'm going to have like certain days where I'm like, okay, I'm going to stream during those days, but it's not necessarily going to have like a label to it as far as like, on that day I'm going to play a game, or on this day I'm going to do a thing, because it's probably going to have to be a thing that just happens naturally. It comes naturally. But you know what I mean? I really like the concept of like, I'm going to be here, and then, you know, something will happen on that day, and stay tuned. You know what I mean? Just to kind of be like, what is ringing a bell to me kind of thing. But yes, thank you for being here. I want to stream more times this week. I know it's already Thursday, but because I didn't stream all week up until today, I really want to stream more. So I'll probably... tomorrow the weather is not going to be fun. But very potentially I'm going to be back tomorrow. If not, most likely Saturday, and I'll try to also do Sunday. Okay, so I'm really gonna try uploading more, also like on YouTube and stuff like that. Actually, tomorrow the Tomb Raider VOD is gonna be up on YouTube. Side note, I turned a 3-hour video, a 3-hour VOD into like a 6-minute video, and then I regretted it because I think I over edited it. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong from your own perspective, I don't know if there's anyone who if there's anyone who watches the VODs on YouTube, let me know how you feel about them. But like, first of all, I just think it's like a low effort thing, and it's kind of easy for me to just like make a thumbnail of a thing that I already did on Twitch and just plop it on YouTube without like the BRBs or anything like that. Because there's something about it that I enjoy, the not unfiltered, I don't want to say uncut, but the mostly unedited experience of me going through a game without like, you know what I mean? But at the same time, maybe I would be here for a little bit of editing, but at the same time, I don't know, I think I struggle a little bit with like allowing for a video to have moments that aren't necessarily like the most exciting. Like, I feel like I'm overly critical sometimes with like a gaming video. It's like every single moment has to be like a big reaction to something, which we've already established. I don't really do big reactions. Sometimes I do, sometimes it happens, but like naturally I'm not someone who's gonna have a big reaction to everything. And it also feels weird for me like to over edit a video, because then it gets rid of certain nuances or certain things that kind of were built throughout the video or throughout the stream. Or so I guess what I'm trying to say is like right now my plan is to continue making, like, putting out the VODs that are in a mostly unedited type of state. And what I mean by that is like I just cut out the BRBs and the like intro just chatting portion, and that's basically it. It's like what I do with my highlights here on Twitch, and I just export them to YouTube with like a thumbnail. Which I don't love that I do that. I'm gonna be very honest. I don't love that I do that because it feels very low effort and it feels very like lazy, and it feels like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like not every stream is the most entertaining thing, because if you look at the grand scheme of things, I think it could be interesting. Like, I think it's interesting the process of like documenting my first playthrough of a game, or a game that I haven't played in 10 years or whatever. But like sometimes the day-to-day of that isn't the most exciting or entertaining or valuable per se. But at the same time, I don't want to like waste it and just put it in like a separate channel, which I've done before. Like I have a VOD channel with like a lot of videos that I've done, or a lot of streams that I've streamed over the years and stuff like that. But at the same time, I don't like managing 2 accounts. At the same time, I also don't love, in a way, kind of spamming my YouTube channel with like a 3-hour Tomb Raider video. But at the same time, it's like, that is the content that I'm producing. So it's like, I'm kind of torn as far as like that. Like, do I just edit the videos but like not over edit them? Like maybe turn a 3-hour video into like a 1-hour video? Like, but then again, like what gets cut out of that? Like what do I, you know what I mean? Like a part of me almost wants to, I can't afford to do that, but a part of me would love I would be very interested to see what's like a different person who's not me would like take that 3-hour video and like see what they would turn it into. Because I would be very interested to see like what they would find valuable and what they would find like, okay, we can cut this out, we can keep this because this is valuable or this is interesting or whatever. Because like for me watching, if I see silence, I'm like, this needs to be cut out. Like I'm just like overly critical of myself or what I think I bring to the table. So sometimes I don't think I'm the best person when it comes to like, I think it's different when there's a particular vision that I have in mind and I can just cut out the things that don't match that. Um, but yeah. So I'm 1,000% not sure what to do with VOD content on my YouTube. Like for the time being, I'm just gonna upload it because I'm not necessarily creating anything original. And when I mean original, I mean just like I'm not creating videos like I'm not just creating videos outside of streaming. Like everything that I'm uploading on YouTube is like taken from a stream. You know, so I'm not expecting an answer or anything, but just from your perspective, if anyone would like to share that, like, I guess it's kind of an awkward position to put you all in, to be like, what do you think of my content, or what should I do about my own content? Like, okay, I'll figure that out. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like the current plan is for the I'm basically gonna keep uploading the VODs mostly unedited. I'm probably gonna take some instances from these streams where I'm not gonna necessarily upload the whole thing. It's gonna be mostly I could possibly upload little moments from today and make a short out of it, or maybe even make like a decent, like not a decently sized, but like, you know, like a video about this. Because like I said, sometimes streaming just feels like a big recording session, and I can just like take, you know, what I do in this recording session and just edit it a ton and stuff like that. I think part of my okay, let me read what you said. Many of us are here repeatedly, so we obviously love you and what you do. Oh, that's not. Oh, I appreciate that. I'm not putting into question whether y'all like me or like whether y'all like my videos. I think it's just I'm just talking from a logistics standpoint, like, because I think what I'm kind of struggling with VODs on YouTube is like, I think sometimes I'm over editing, and sometimes I'm like, I'm not. It's like I'm thinking about it as like I'm preserving my streams, and sometimes when I over edit it, I feel like I'm not preserving the archive properly, if that makes sense. So there's that. So sometimes I do have that tricky thing in my head where like sometimes I honestly, and I'm saying this straight up, sometimes I just I'm like I don't even like I don't want to. It's not that I don't want to stream, but sometimes I'm like I don't want to upload this gaming content until like sometimes I kind of want to do just like a video of me ranting about a game and saying everything that I think about it with like, you know, B-roll footage of it, and it not being a stream thing. But like the thing is, I love streaming because it's also like a good way for me to like I said, it's a way for me to do stuff with other people and like have that kind of company. And I think it removes some pressure off of me if I treat streaming as like just a big old recording session with people watching. But I don't know. Sometimes I struggle a little bit with the logistics of it. Short versions don't show you like the person we got to know over the longer streams. I don't even know if it's that. I think sometimes it's a me thing with being like, I think a couple things. One thing is like, I worry that the VOD isn't like, so I'm uploading a video like on Ni no Kuni, and it's like I turn a 3-hour video into a 6-minute video. Sometimes I'm like, the video is too short. That's number one. Number two, sometimes I'm like, sometimes I feel like I cut out too much, so it's like you kind of it's just like it just feels like there's not a good flow to it. Sometimes I just feel like it's like we're go. It's like a lot of like almost like jump cuts to it. So I may play around with the idea of just like cutting out like particular moments where, but then again, I feel like that takes away from the essence of the stream. Like if I cut out like every time there's a sub, or if I cut out anything that's like, oh, thank you for the bits, or thank you for this, thank you for that, I think it kind of takes away from the experience. So I, like I ultimately don't think there's anything wrong with it. And also people can like, if they just treat it as a VOD, they can just like skip over certain sections that they don't really care about. Or if I rant about a particular thing that's like completely off topic, they can always like jump ahead and click and like, click ahead in the video. But sometimes I wonder if there is a better way for me to, if there's a better way for me to convey like the vibes of the stream and like a good flow, but it's not necessarily like a 3-hour VOD, right? So I mean, the thing is, I can always try it out, edit a video and watch it back, and I can always hate it and never upload it. Like that's always an option. And that's literally what I did. I made that like 5 or 6 minute video. I uploaded it, and then the next day I was like, no, I'm gonna delete it. I'm gonna delete it. No, I don't like this. I don't like this. This doesn't feel right, and I deleted it. So I think it might just be like a trial and error type of thing, where I'm just like, let me try this approach instead. Like let's see how this editing style works, or this format works, or whatever, because I also recognize that someone who's watching my YouTube channel and clicks on a video that's like a Tomb Raider video, and it's like a 3-hour long video, and like a lot of it is bullshit, like a lot of it is like irrelevant, and like someone who's not watching the stream wouldn't care about it. I get that. Like I get that it's irrelevant for like a newcomer or whatever, but at the same time I do have a fear that like, what if I'm taking away from the people who are regulars? Like what if me cutting out too much of it is making it like not as enjoyable for the regulars? Like I don't know. I think it's a lot of, what it is? Overthinking. Me overthinking a concept. But I appreciate y'all. I may toy around with like some edited, like not too edited, but maybe a little edited videos on YouTube. And I'm honestly, to a degree, I'm still kind of toying with like, I feel like it would be too much work for me to like maybe post edited versions of the video of the streams on YouTube, and then the full versions on like the separate VOD channel that I have. I feel like that might be a little too much, but at the same time, maybe that would be better. I don't know. I'm not sure. And I wonder if it would be interesting for me to, like on the main channel, I could have videos where like I use my streams as B-roll, but maybe I talk over it. Almost like not really a story time, but me being like, I don't know, talking over it or whatever. I'm not sure. And it's almost like I don't give myself the opportunity to just try. So I feel like I'm just gonna, maybe I'll do a couple behind the scenes trials on some things of like, okay, I wonder if this feels right or not, and I'll try that out. It's also like kind of a lot to dig through like a 3-hour video that like and find, you know what I mean, and like take the time to edit stuff, but it might be worth the effort to do that. Being perfectly honest, I don't watch your YouTube as I watch this Twitch. That's fine. Maybe others are the same, so maybe it's a different kind of audience on YouTube. Maybe not. I don't know. No, it's definitely a different audience. Because y'all would never write the shit that I read on YouTube. And it's literally, I think to a degree it's not the same audience. Like it might be for like people who couldn't watch the stream live. They get to see it on YouTube, like if they missed it. But at the same time, I don't know how interesting it is for someone who like they missed the stream and maybe they just want like, you know, they kind of want to catch up on what I'm doing, but maybe they don't want to sit through a 3-hour video, you know, because I'm certainly not sitting through anyone's 3-hour videos. You know what I mean? So I might just have to find some sort of like middle ground between like over editing and under editing, you know? Because I feel like right now the videos are going up under edited. And I do like having them archived. And it's also like, I'm just going to say this, it's easy because YouTube is like based off of watch time. So even if I don't get a lot of views on a video, if like the people that do watch end up watching a lot of it, that helps me. And it's like uploading a big old VOD on YouTube can be kind of useful to kind of boost up the watch time of it all, to be honest. Because the people who are interested in watching a lot of it, they will, and if they do, it helps me. But I do think there's probably a better solution over me just uploading a video as is. So yeah, I'll have to figure that out. Because there's creators who do that. Like they have a main channel where they post edited stuff, and they have a VOD channel where they post the full unedited things. So, and I technically have both, but I'm not using my VOD channel as of recently. But maybe I could. But maybe I could go back to that. We'll see. Sometimes I am just overcritical, and I'm like, this is not a good stream. Like sometimes I'm just watching a stream back and I'm like, I feel like I can't harvest any goodness out of this stream, because I don't know, sometimes I'm just like I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm in a great mood, or like sometimes I'm like, you just weren't like, particularly funny that day or whatever. But I don't know. Your husband literally just uploads his streams as he hates editing, and he doesn't get a lot of views, but he likes that they're all there if he needs to check anything. No. Yes, I like that. I like the concept of like documenting what I'm doing on stream. It's almost like I almost like my YouTube channel as a little bit of a portfolio. The thing is, I'm not always, and that's totally fine. Like a 5-hour stream is not always going to be like, not every second of that is going to be the best entertainment ever created. Like today's stream is 4 hours long. I'm not going to fucking upload this unedited on YouTube. So why do I do that with gaming videos, So might be a thing that it might be worth considering. Maybe putting a little bit more effort into that. And with that, I don't know if I would re-upload the videos that I've been uploading on my YouTube, maybe on my VOD channel, so that I can make room for edited stuff on my main channel. I'm not sure. I'm also not sure fully what I want to do with my main channel. I'm thinking just like edited stuff off of like what I'm doing on Twitch, whether it's like a reaction commentary moment, whether it's like a rant, whether it's like a gaming thing, but we'll see. We shall see. But you know what? I'm interested in trying it out. I'm interested in the trial of an error of it all. Because I'm very much someone that like sometimes when things just don't feel right, I just don't feel good about having them up. And sometimes I let, like, for example, the recent VODs on YouTube, I let them be up, but at the same time, it's not like I'm particularly proud of them. So it almost makes me feel a certain kind of way about like just uploading them on YouTube, just because it's like I feel like I should only be uploading things that I'm like, you know what, like I'm 100% behind this, like I love this, so maybe I'll have to do a little bit of thinking and a little bit of trial and error over like maybe some of the behind the scenes stuff could just like be different. Maybe the way that I run things, because I technically still have my VOD channel, so maybe I'll just run the two separate channels and have them have the two different uses. So I think that might just be how I do things moving forward. I'm sorry this turned into a brainstorming session. It's just that I do appreciate y'all's feedback, you know, like that's a thing that ultimately I'm not creating stuff for myself to watch. So, you know, if I can get any sort of feedback on anything, it's always highly appreciated. But sometimes I do toe the line a little bit of like, okay, now I'm just fucking brainstorming and nobody gives a shit. Like, so with that, I'm going to wrap up today's stream. Have a good one, y'all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging with my conversations and opinions, thoughts, feelings, and concerns. Yeah, it's true. Talking through stuff does help. But sometimes, you know, journaling can also be just as good without getting other people involved in my own thoughts and feelings and concerns. But, you know, it's good. It's good. It's all good. Thank you for being here. Like I said, I'm looking at the weather. Tomorrow might be a little much. So if I don't stream tomorrow, you'll know why. But I do want to stream more this weekend. So we shall see. With me trying out to like put more of an effort into my YouTube videos, as far as like, you know, a little bit more effort into that, maybe that will mean maybe less streams if I feel like, you know, me streaming more is making it so that stuff on YouTube is getting too backed up or whatever. I don't particularly intend on anything. I'm just kind of giving a heads up on that. But yeah, I think I'm gonna spend a little bit of time kind of I wish there was a way to easily transfer stuff from like one channel to another. I don't think that's a thing you can do. But I might just like transfer manually some stuff that some of the recent VODs that I've put on my YouTube. I might just do that on my VOD channel. And I might want to go through some of the stuff that I've done and just edit them into YouTube versions or something like that. We'll see. Thank you for being here. I feel like I've done several outros for today's stream, but thank you for being here. I highly appreciate y'all. Y'all are wonderful. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for engaging in my discussions, conversations, thoughts, feelings, and concerns about various things. And I will